probably anywhere along your defensive front. Depending on how you want to line up. I'll give you an example. He's a much better prospect than Mike Morris. But Mike Morris is the big kid out of Michigan who lined up at defensive end in Michigan, but has played a lot of snaps inside for Seattle because he's so big and he's got some physical power to him, but he's not an edge rusher. So, you try to find ways to use them.
Is Falk more explosive, though, than Morris? Because, Morris doesn't have much of a burst.
He's a way better prospect, yes.
Yeah.
Morris was a really nice college player, and if I'm not mistaken, wasn't he like a 4th or 5th round pick? He was not a high pick.
Yeah.
I was just trying to use that as a comparison because they're both tall, they're both long. Neither one is a pure edge rusher.
Yeah, and I looking at his numbers, it kind of felt body type looked a lot similar to what Morris. And Morris is a serviceable guy for Seattle, a depth guy, and all that. Falk, a young guy, small town Alabama guy, went to Auburn, hasn't left the state. Young kid, we'll see what he's got about him.
Yeah,
I'm going to jump around a little bit.
When I watch Falk, just to give you an example, and I know we want to move on and get to a bunch of guys. When I watched Falk, I thought of Bill Belichick and how he deploys a lot of defensive linemen, and obviously he's not coaching in the NFL. And certainly Falk's not Richard Seymour, but if you remember the way Richard Seymour would line up at DN, he'd line up anywhere along the defensive line. And Falk's not Richard Seymour. I don't want people to think I'm making an apples-to-apples comparison, but I thought of that's the kind of way in which he'll be deployed if you draft him.
That makes sense. I'm going to skip by. Listen, Arvell Reese, David Bailey, both guys ranked really high. I'm going to skip by those because Seattle's not going to get those guys. They're not.
They're not going to be trading up to the top 5.
No. I am, and another guy's going to go probably very early, but I'm just curious to get your thoughts on him because we all know him and remember him from the title or the run in the playoffs. I would love to get your thoughts on what you've seen from Ruben Bain Jr. I've heard a lot about him after the combine, the short arms, all that kind of stuff. What do you see from Ruben Bain? He's not going to be a Seahawk, but what do you see from Ruben Bain?
Yeah, I don't have, and I'm being honest, I don't have an answer about the arm length, and I'll tell you why. I'm going to give you a very quick analogy, which two people way smarter than I am, and which is why I don't have an answer. It involves Will Campbell, the offensive tackle for the Patriots. I heard Joe Thomas, who obviously knows more about offensive tackle play than I do, saying that his problems down the stretch had nothing to do with arm length. Then I spoke to a good friend of mine who's been an offensive line coach in the league for 30 plus years, who said, absolutely, it had everything to do with the short arms. So when you hear two people who are really smart say that, I can't tell you what his arm length means. I can tell you what he looks like on film, and he's a sawed-off, hyper-competitive, hyper-physical power player. He's a fun guy to watch because he plays so hard. He knows how to use his hands and whatever arm length you want to give him, and he's very good at playing off contact. And there's just a sheer physicality and toughness and competitiveness to his game. But he's more than likely just a defensive end. Now, having said that, I thought there were some similarities to Brandon Graham when he came out of Michigan, and Graham later in his career started playing inside for Philly, but he didn't do that early in his career. So, Bain is not an outside backer. He's not a stand-up guy who's going to drop into coverage. That's not who he is. You're not drafting him to do that. But he's a really good football player, and there's people who believe that the arm length won't matter because of the way in which he plays, and I guarantee in draft meetings there'll be others who say, history shows that no one with that arm length makes it as a defensive end, which, by the way, history shows. So you're going to have competing thoughts and competing draft processes right there. Like I said, I love watching him play. I don't have an answer to it. I'm just being honest.
Greg Cosell joining us courtesy of the Hall Group. Don't forget, swing on by the Occidental Hall before or after baseball games this season. $5 smash burgers post game. All right, let's stay with Miami and talk about his teammate because he might be around if Seattle's drafting into the first round or maybe even the second round. Who knows? That's Akeem Messidor.
Yeah, and he's an older player, which teams will have different views on that. I think he'll be 25. He's a much juicier, more explosive off-the-ball athlete than Ruben Bain. He's got sudden quickness off the ball. He can generate velocity at the top of his pass rush arc. He's violent as well. There's physicality, there's strong hands. He's got short stroke power. He showed some speed to power. He's built differently. Even though he's not significantly taller, he looks longer on film. He's got really good body control and balance. He's a really interesting guy. Who knows how this draft's going to play out because with the lack of quarterbacks in it, you just don't know how, players will start to come off the board. And sometimes that changes how teams do things. But Messidor's a very interesting guy. He's more of a true edge player when you think of a guy that has true pass rush traits.
Last week we talked with our buddy Rob Rang about Zion Young, and it sounds like Young from Missouri is a guy that is, I'm going to use the word kind of polarizing in the sense of, you just said it a moment ago, every team looks at every player differently, right? Whether it's age, arm length, all these things.
Yes, right.
Zion Young kind of feels like one of those guys that's going to be much debated during the draft from Missouri. What do you see from him on tape?
Yeah, because I think he falls more into that category I mentioned when you asked me initially about, edge players. I think he's more of a prototypical 4-3 DN in a foundational four-man D-line front. His staple strengths are power and physicality and working his hands. He's not a twitchy, sudden guy. Doesn't mean he can never sack the quarterback, but he doesn't have that higher level bend and flexibility. So he wins kind of as a pass rusher with methodical power and hand placement. But he's 6'6", 262. He's a big man. He looks big on tape. He's very good at block reconstruction in the run game. He can set the edge. But, to me, you don't draft him and say he's now my edge rusher. This is the guy we're going to count on that other teams are going to account for when they play us. He's not that guy, but he's a good football player. He's just, I'm a big believer, Ian, and you'll appreciate this. To me, you've got to understand what a guy is. It's like in baseball, okay, with free agency. When a guy is in a lineup and batting seventh, he hits 30 home runs, and then some team signs him to big money and wants to bat him third, thinking he's going to do exactly the same thing. It doesn't always work like that. Mm-hmm. You sort of, to me, you have to have a sense of what a guy is.
Well, the thing with Young that's interesting about him is, again, probably scheme specific in a sense as well.
Yeah.
And as we're talking about, as we're talking about edge rushers, and and which is, as Greg articulated and kind of defined at the start of the segment, it's wide ranging in what it looked like. Seattle had the best defense statistically in the NFL last year, Greg, as you well know. Their top sack guys were two guys in the interior, both with 7 sacks.
Yep.
Like, this is not Mike McDonald. I don't know if he's looking for like that speed edge rusher that we've come to know and talk about over the years.
It may not be the priority. I mean, I'm sure if there was one that he, was there, like, depending on what they choose to do with their draft picks, you have someone like Malachi Lawrence from UCF. Yeah. And I have no idea how John Schneider or Mike McDonald feels about Malachi Lawrence, but he's not likely to be a first-round pick. And if you really like him, he's that kind of guy. He's got some length to him. He's a good rusher, plays the run pretty well. He's a solid edge rushing prospect. But, Zion Young, just to give you an example, because, we're both a little older and we go back to football from a few years ago. Back in the day when we used to look at a 4-3 DN and say he's a strong side DN. He plays, over the tight end. Remember we used to say that about guys? Mm-hmm. That to me is Zion Young. Okay. That's who Zion Young is to me.
Well, when I bring up just kind of this, how they look at it, like it feels like they do everything kind of by committee up front a little bit too, and Zion Young might fit that. But let's talk about let's go back to Malachi Lawrence from UCF and what you see from him.
Yeah, he was, I didn't know much about him at all. In fact, a very good friend of mine at the Combine told me about him. Obviously, UCF's not necessarily on, TV all the time. So I didn't see much of him at all, didn't know a lot about him. I liked him. I thought he showed some knockback power in his hands and his arms, which is very good in the run game. I thought he could stop and redirect. He's a plus athlete. He's over 6'4". He's over 250. He's got good arm length. I think that he showed some tools in his toolbox. Where he has to work on some things, and they all do, by the way. So it's never a knock on a player, on a prospect, their prospects, to say they have things to work on. He's got to work on playing off contact, reworking his hands, which is very common, by the way, for college pass rushers, because they don't do that a lot in college. He reminded me a little bit of, and I'm sure we talked about this guy last year. He was a rookie this year in Carolina named Nick Skouerton, who actually played a lot in Carolina and played well toward the end of the season. He reminded me of Nick Skouerton quite a bit, but I like Malachi Lawrence.
How about Cassius Howell from Texas A&M?
Now, there's another guy that has an arm length major concern, but he is super juicy. I mean, this guy he may be, along with David Bailey, the two most explosive edge players in this draft in terms of just exploding off the edge. I mean, this guy that's just who he is. He is super quick. He's got explosive get off. He's got first step twitch. I mean, this guy challenges the high side of offensive tackles, meaning the outside shoulder, as quickly as you can do it, and he can do some things off of that. He's got that one arm step. He plays as if his arms are longer. That's the odd thing. He plays because there's times when he uses his arms really, really well. Now, you could also say he's always had short arms, so he that's the thing. Guys know what they are,
right?
And know what they are when you play sports long enough. You know what you can do and what you can't do. But this guy is I think he could play in a 5-2 base as an outside backer. His coverage ability is very, very good. But this guy he's explosive, and he's terrific as a looper in stunts, because he's got that short area burst. He's got flexibility, and man, does he have closing speed.
We got a couple more guys we get time to hit on as well. How about R. Mason Thomas out of Oklahoma?
Yeah, he falls a little more into the Cassius Howell category, although he doesn't weigh as much, and that shows up. But he's another guy that has some juice to him. I don't think it's at the same level of Howell, and he weighs a good 10, 12 pounds less, and sometimes that shows up on film when, because don't forget, you weigh 240 as an edge rusher, you're giving up, 70 pounds to pretty much every offensive tackle you're going against.
Right.
Now, they know that, of course. So, there's reasons these guys know that, and they know how to deal with it. I like R. Mason Thomas, but I don't think he's at the level of prospect as let's say, a Cassius Howell, even though he'd fit into the same box.
Is it Gabe Jackas from Illinois? Is it Jackas?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he's more like Zion Young, personally. I know there's a lot of different chatter about him. And some people really, really like him because he's just, he's one of those guys you come away and you go, he's a good football player. But I think his game's built on power and physicality more than higher level athleticism. He's nowhere near as long as Zion Young, which, that's a concern. But he's not an explosive guy. He's kind of more measured and methodical. He's got, what I call a rugged and forceful demeanor. He plays the way you want a guy to play. And as a pass rusher, his foundation would be speed to power, but he really doesn't have a deep arsenal of moves and counter moves. So you can teach that. But I see him a little more as kind of that strong defensive end type, although he did play a lot of 5-2 at Illinois. So it's very possible that teams whose base is a 5-2 will see him as a 5-2 outside backer.
Is that basically what Seattle is? I always never is Seattle 5-2?
No.
Okay. It feels like they have. I mean, they got the two linebackers.
They do a lot of things, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
They do a lot of things.
Derek Moore out of Michigan. We saw a lot of Michigan football the last few years. Hell, we just saw a lot of Michigan basketball, if I'm not mistaken, Greg, the last few days. Michigan. We live in Michigan's world. We're in Michigan's world. We're just living in it right now, I think is what it is. But
that's right.
I do remember this is a guy I think every college football fan, every football fan knows the name Derek Moore out of Michigan. He's ranked a little lower by most. I think he probably is a second or third round pick maybe. So definitely a day two guy. But what do you see from Derek Moore?
Yeah, I liked him, and I saw him last summer, too. He's a strong edge defender. His game is primarily strength and power. Now, he knows how to use his hands well, and he's got long arms. I mean, he's 6'4", 255. His arm length is over 33 inches. He knows how to use it in both the run game and as a pass rusher. He really knows how to place his hands. Without going into the weeds on that, they teach you when you use your first hand strike as a pass rusher, where to put it on the offensive tackle, and he knows exactly where to do that, and he can drive guys back into the pocket. I think he's a 4-3 guy, but I think he could be another 5-2 guy if you see him that way. But I liked his tape. I mean, I think you're right. He's just a good player. He won't go in round one, but he could be one of those guys that ends up, in 2 years, 3 years, we're talking about Derek Moore being a starter somewhere. I'm
going to do this because we just got a couple minutes left. Analyst choice. Who do Seahawk fans need to know? Is it, I'm going through here. Is it Crawford?
Coming a little further down the road?
Yeah, Crawford from Auburn. Is it Height from Texas Tech?
He fascinates me because he has not played
football
in his life.
Which one's that?
And he's a guy that to me will be an ascending player because he now, obviously he played often opposite Falk. Sometimes they lined up on the same side. But this kid, you're talking about a kid now that's juicy. I mean, this kid's an athlete.
Which kid is that? I gave you two names. I'm sorry, Greg. Which kid is that?
Kieran Crawford.
From Auburn. Okay, perfect. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, he's a sudden, twitchy athlete. He's got explosive get-off. He can instantly challenge the high side. I mean, I think he needs work because he didn't play football until his senior season in high school
Wow.
and then started his career at Arkansas State. So, I mean, he's, obviously hasn't played as much football as most guys when they get to this level. But I think there's a lot there to develop. And again, I don't get to know these players, so I can't tell you how much he picks up or doesn't pick up. But, if all signs in that regard are really strong, it would not surprise me if this guy in 2 years, 3 years, we are really talking about him because he is a juicy guy.
I like the term juicy, by the way. That sounds good. I like that. I'm getting thirsty actually thinking about that right now. We got another
I'm trying to think.
We got another sponsor called No Lie Brewing. They have a big and juicy beer. I'm thinking about that right now. What about Dennis Sutton from Penn State? Do you like him?
I think he's more like Zion Young.
Okay.
I think he's a really good player.
Okay.
I think he's gotten a little better as a pass rusher as he's progressed at Penn State and he played that extra year. He could have come out last year.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when all said and done, he's not a true pass rusher. So I think he's another one of those sort of solid defensive ends. Like if you had a big time stud on the other side and, who could rush the quarterback and he played on the other side, he'll defend the run, he'll set the edge, he'll do all those things that are obviously critical, but no one gets excited about. Fans I'm talking about. But, he's a good football player.
That is Greg Cosell talking about edge rushers here. We'll take a break, come back. Check your text, 49451. That is the Tacoma Dodge text line next. Hey, it's Ian back with you for Aurora LASIK, AuroraLASIK.com. Here's the deal with Aurora LASIK. If you need your eyes fixed, maybe you wear glasses or contacts for everything, you need All right. Check the text, 49451. That would be the Tacoma Dodge text line, Anders. Tacoma Dodge. Let's go. Here we go. Da-da-da. Tank for Juju next year. Talking WNBA draft. Okay.
Down for that.
Oh, she sat out the entire year, right?
She did.
Yeah, with the knee injury. Because she got hurt in the Final Four last year.
Correct.
Right? Yeah.
She's a stud.
Yeah, doesn't say something about a league and a sport in the third overall pick in the draft is described as being just okay. I described Olivia Miles as just okay. I mean, I don't know. I haven't watched enough. It's probably unfair of me. I just watched the UW game, the UW tournament game when they played TCU. Okay. Like, Becker's Juju jumped off the screen when you watched them play in college. Right? Just jumped off the screen in college. Angel, kind of the same way, in a sense, right? I mean, that's...
Absolutely.
Right? So, anyway, we'll see. We'll probably... like I said, I'm going to try to get somebody on tomorrow. Oh, let's see. What do we got here? Apparently, MJ said the other day, Friday, I believe, that if we get the Sonics back, we should forgive the Thunder. Softy shared his thoughts. What about y'all? My thoughts are very Ernest Jones. Like, if you think I'll forgive you or forget 20 years no Sonics basketball, blank you.
I'd go along those sentiments, yeah.
Yeah, I thought I had a conversation with Mark on air in crosstalk about the Thunder, but I don't think the term forgive was ever used.
Yeah.
I think he said, well, you just kind of ignore, move on. I go, well, I think it's an automatic rival.
Which I love. I honestly love that.
Yeah. I said, I've kind of let them, I just haven't really cared about them the last few years. The first year they went to the finals, I'll be honest with you, I was stressed.
Yeah.
I was rooting so hard against them.
Because that was literally like the team the Sonics could have been in a few years.
That's why.
Yes.
4 years after.
Yes.
Last year,
it's a totally different team.
Don't even care.
Yeah,
I'd rather them never win. I wish they would go 0-82 every year. But I long since forgot about that. Not forgave anybody.
No.
I don't forgive anybody for that. No. I mean, we went 20 years. We're going to go a minimum of 20 years without the NBA.
I went my entire sports youth / formative years without an NBA team.
Right. Do you think that'll affect you when the NBA
100%,
comes back?
100%. I would have been a massive fan and still would have been, and now I just don't really.
You've got other interests.
Yeah.
Just for people, like Anders is a big Premier League guy, right?
Yep. I got soccer. I've been getting into NHL lately.
I'll give you credit. You not only have you been getting into it, you've developed a pretty good knowledge of it.
Thank you.
And a lot of strong opinions about it.
Yes.
Some of which drive me nuts. But you know what? Like You've got other stuff, and you're a huge baseball guy.
Yeah.
So I think that is an interesting thing because the NBA, when it does come back, what will how will it relate to the younger fans? And I say it from this standpoint. God, I got to find this. There was a thing Dwight James texted yesterday, my buddy Dwight, down in Portland. And it was talking about one of the games last night. I mean, it was an embarrassment what was on the floor. Like, just an absolute embarrassment. And I bring that up for this reason.
In what way?
Like, nobody was playing.
Oh, okay.
Like, nobody was playing. And I think because the first few years, the team's going to be bad. Like, understand that. The first few years, the NBA team is not going to be good. Like, they're not going to be a Vegas Golden Knights and make the playoffs every year. No. They're not even going to be the Seattle Kraken and make the playoffs in the second year, probably. Like, it's probably going to take a while. But I wonder how that's going to play here with a younger fan base, because the younger fan base would be enthralled with, and I think a lot of people would be like, hey, man, like, I can't wait to watch X play or Y play or this guy play. Well, if those guys are sitting out games all the time, especially think about this. This is really a doomsday thought. Hey, we're coming to Seattle. They're 4-25 this year. We don't have to play our dues tonight, right?
Yeah, because the first couple of years, it'll definitely more be about who they're playing against. I get to see some of these NBA stars.
And what if you spend $1 zillion on a ticket and those guys aren't playing?
Yeah.
Right?
I do like what they did this year, though, and made it a 65-game minimum to be eligible for awards.
Yeah.
And that kind of has made I'm going to sit off because of a sore hamstring kind of stuff go away. Because especially like the guys that really want to be eligible for like MVP, comeback player of the year, all that stuff, you got to play.
Yeah.
It's just the way it goes.
I'm just like, I can't find it, but it was yesterday was like yesterday's the last day of the regular season. I get it.
Right.
I mean, we'll see. I mean,
we see that in hockey now too. If you look at some of their lineups that they're putting out, because of teams that are either eliminated or already in the playoffs, right?
Yeah, I mean, but you see it for the final game or two,
right?
Like you see this throughout the year in the NBA. Now, I was pointing out something from yesterday, but but yeah, man, I don't know. I'm not sure. It just. It's an interesting thing you said there, though. I hadn't thought of it in those regards. All the people that are your age that grew up without it around here.
Yeah.
Are they just going to roll in and all of a sudden be huge fans? Now, and here's why. So my son is.
And he still follows the NBA now, right?
Yes. But I think that's because that was his sport. Like he played it. You weren't a basketball kid.
No.
And like he played it a lot. High school, AAU, the whole 9 yards. So I think maybe he was more in tune with it.
Yeah, and
but not everybody is that. Like if you grew up and you're a soccer guy or you're a baseball guy or you're just, whatever guy, you may not be enthralled with it.
Well, in full disclosure, during like the 2010s, the Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, LeBron James, peak, I was a pretty big basketball fan. I was watching the finals every year. I was like all in on that. The Warriors dynasty, the Spurs when they were like. Yeah. I just have lost it the last like 5 or 6 years. I've lost a lot.
I'll be interested. Like playoffs start this week. I love this time of the year.
Yeah.
When we got the NBA and the NHL playoffs starting next weekend. I think the NBA has the playing games the next couple days too. But when that gets going, would you be in favor of play-in for the NHL or not?
No.
Yeah, I think I don't. I would this year.
Yeah, I'm thinking bigger picture here.
But I think, and I don't want to be a hypocrite because I said the same thing today. If you finish 8th, you shouldn't have to play a 10th place team as a play-in game. You finished 8th. That's. I think the bigger question in the NHL is: would you go back to one versus 8?
I think that
as opposed to having like two teams that have well over 100 points playing in the first round.
What are we doing? Minnesota, Dallas? Those are probably 2 of the 3 best teams in the league.
Yeah.
And they're playing each other in the first round.
Right.
That is crazy to me.
I mean, I guess the only thing, and it usually works out most of the time where the top 8 teams usually get in.
Yeah.
Now, the East could have a little bit different this year. The Eastern Conference of the NHL, that might not be the case with the division.
Yeah, because there's a couple really good East teams that if they were in the West, they would have been in, like all that stuff.
But if you went, because you just mentioned it, it's kind of an interesting thing. If you went with the 1 versus 8, you'd have Colorado versus LA, Dallas versus Anaheim, Minnesota versus Edmonton.
Which makes a ton of sense.
And Vegas and Utah. Although Vegas winning the division, they might be the NFL-like thing, and they might be the 2 seed. So I don't know.
It's weird.
Yeah, it is weird. I don't know. The NBA is an interesting thing. Forgive. I don't think when I talked to Mark, he didn't use that word.
Okay.
So I will give. Because I would say no. Forgive. I'm I have a very petty individual when it comes to the NBA and the Sonics. Forgive is not in the vocabulary, not in the repertoire.
No.
All right, let's take a break. We'll come back. We'll check in with Softy next. righty then, ladies and gentlemen. Here he is, Dave Softy Muller.
Righty then. Yeah.
The last time we were supposed to do this, it was canceled because there was a fire alarm going off.
Yes. That would be very annoying, man. It's like the movie Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Hey, you want to hear the most annoying sound ever?
Well, and that's why we were looking forward to doing crosstalk.
All right.
Because it would have just sent you nuts.
Well, we should do a contest here on the radio station.
Okay.
Have the alarm go off and have somebody sit here in the office and see how long they can take it before their ears start to bleed.
I thought you were going to go have the alarm go off for 5 minutes, have Softy talk for 5 minutes,
and then judge
tell us
which
one's
worse. Right.
Yeah, there you go.
Well,
we were on the air for 8 minutes with the alarm going off.
But I've always said, and you know this being the radio veteran that you are, which basically means you're old.
Yeah, as you are.
Some of the greatest ratings in radio are when the station's off the air.
Yes.
And people tune in and they hear dead air and they want to know when you're coming back. It's unbelievable, man.
I did that driving home.
Oh, dude.
Because
I'll bet you our numbers Friday were through the roof.
I'm listening to some god awful show on Fox.
Oh, come on.
And
jeez, man.
I mean, it's really bad.
Wow.
And whatever would be playing if you weren't on. So I'm listening to that thing. I mean, it was bad, dude. I'm just telling you. Anyway, I'm listening to this and like, when's Softy coming on and how is he going to handle this?
Right.
Because you're right. I wasn't going to. I had to stop on the way home. I wasn't going to get out of the car. I wanted to hear what happened when you came on and things weren't working.
Yes. Well, and then I was waiting to hear if it was some kind of a human forced malfunction, like a Curtis Crabtree
human error
type scenario. When Curtis spilled a 7-Up on the old studio board.
Diet Coke.
Diet Coke,
Even
sorry.
worse.
From McDonald's, a big one, like the jumbo size one.
Yeah,
right? Like
the old. Were you here when that happened, Anders?
Yes, I literally, that was like the second week that I was here.
And that cost the radio station like $15,000.
A lot of money.
Or whatever it was.
A lot of money.
Jeez, man.
Terry Ryan running. What the hell is going
God.
on?
What did you do here? Oh, jeez, man. Come on. So the talk back button here was stuck.
That was stuck.
Apparently something got stuck inside there.
That was Thursday crosstalk.
You know? Oh, that was Thursday?
So Thursday crosstalk, that was
well, back in the day, we used to be able to blame food from New York Vinny's beard from getting caught in the microphone and the old windscreen. Not like the one we have now.
The foam one?
The foam one.
Oh, those are disgusting.
That would cover the entire microphone. I would come on at 7 o'clock at night, and I kid you not, the thing was moist. Moist. Disgusting. All right? I mean, just think of the guys that were breathing into that thing all day long. Mike Gastineau, Dave Grosby, New York Vinny, Michael Knight, Mitch in the Midday back in the day.
Michael Knight was
Brian Wheeler.
Was it?
I mean, dude, you could have a whole dinner plan just based on what was inside that microphone.
Was that was Knight and Vinny in the morning or whatever it was?
Gnarly.
Oh my gosh,
Michael Knight, New York Vinny Riccici. Doing morning shows, doing remotes from McDonald's. That was fun back in the day.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Oh, dude, it's unbelievable.
Then the Gros would roll in. The Gros
would roll in for a noon show at 11:59 and go out the door at 3:01. Which is kind of what I do now. So,
I mean, I can't blame him. Respect.
Anyway, no, I'm glad to hear that nothing blew up. You know, that's good.
I think we're all good.
There's a big generator truck outside the office.
Well, when I'm sitting in here and we're waiting to go on and like everyone's leaving. Right. And we've had this happen before. We had it happen on the other side, same building on the other side. God, I think it was right before COVID. And I remember we walked in and Puck and I were doing the show.
Right.
And Rich is like, he's like, oh, you guys are fine. No, it actually wasn't Puck. It was me and Shockey and me. And Shockey's in the other room, and it's him and I. And things going off. Do we need to leave? And Rich goes, no, you guys are fine. Purple Sheet's like, you guys are fine. Shockey looks at me. I'm like, okay, we're fine. We're hanging out here.
That's right.
And then about 10 minutes later, like literally a fireman came upstairs and goes, you guys need to leave.
Well, you remember...
So this building is cursed, man. It's not the first time it's happened.
You guys probably watched the Chernobyl series on HBO. Did you watch that, by the way?
Yes.
Phenomenal series.
Fantastic.
Right? So there's a part of the series.
So you're thinking there's a nuclear meltdown here?
No, there's a part of the series, and I don't know if this is accurate or not. I assume there's a chance that it is, where the Russian government, I guess, asked 2 people to basically sacrifice their lives to go underneath the reactor and dig a trench. And they knew that whoever those 2 dudes they were never going to make it out.
Right.
And if they did make it out, they were going to be, basically done, right? Within days.
Yep.
That's what you and Shockey were.
That's what we were.
We got to have 2 people stay behind.
We're going to be here.
All right.
At the end.
The place may blow.
Well, and that's what I told.
Okay.
That's what I told
We're going to
Jess.
sacrifice Fernandez and Shockey.
That's what I was telling Jess. Jess was like, we got to leave right now. I go, no, we're fine. We're all good. She goes, they told us to go to the north end of the building. I go, this is the north end.
Well,
this is
honestly,
the north building.
When you hear about an electrical fire or whatever it was, I mean, there is a concern that the building is going to blow. You know, like you hear about houses having gas leaks.
I found out today from
So
Purple
the fact that you guys were actually hanging outside the building as close as you were shocked the hell out of me.
Except for,
I'm at Jimmy's. I was more than so.
And I was the one guy that got in the car and left.
That's right. You took off.
I took off. I'm out of here.
Good for you. But the team player
I said,
over there.
Yeah, you guys are fine. Well, the funny thing is I come in today and Purple Sheet says, I said, where to start? He goes, well, you know, there's this. Whoever's on the second floor, they deal with chemicals and stuff.
That's right.
So that Chernobyl part that you just mentioned,
2 floors below us.
that actually could happen.
I saw something crawling up the wall last week that may be coming from the second floor, man. Who knows? So anyway.
All right, what are you doing today?
Last day of No Dick. We get Dick back tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, so
that's good.
Hugh Millen's in today. We're going to talk to Whit Watson from the Golf Channel on the Masters, obviously recap the Masters. Talk about how terrible CBS's camera coverage was.
Where's Rory's ball?
Yesterday.
Can't find it.
We'll talk to Bill Krueger at 5 o'clock when the Mariner game is over against the Astros. We'll do a little fun with audio, a little testimonials, and one of 3 final Kraken games. Is that right? 3 left?
Last home games tonight.
Right. Tonight, Wednesday, Thursday.
Yeah.
Why is tonight's game at 6:30, by the
it's
way?
on ESPN Plus or something. I don't know.
They can't do 7 o'clock. It's too much.
I don't know. You know
Too much for the
What are you
worldwide
talking about? It's 30
brain
less
to
minutes for
handle.
you.
I like being on the air.
Okay, good.
Talking about.
You're very happy about that. No TV, no local TV, so it's a good night all the way around.
Oh, is that why you're here? Not doing your makeup? Putting your foundation on?
It takes hours.
Do you have a makeup person, by the way?
Well, she sets us up at the start of the year.
Oh, really?
Tiff.
And you're going to wear it the whole year?
Well, no.
What do you mean
She
sets you up?
gets us. Here's what we
Stay
have.
on makeup.
Here's what we have.
Like with a kit?
Yeah, she says, here's what you have. Here's what you got to put on your face. Here's how you do it. They got to match the colors.
Oh, my God.
You got to match your tone, your skin tone.
I'm not surprised that you need hours, by the way, to cover that face up.
I think I did put makeup on you once.
Oh, jeez.
Do you remember that?
No, I don't.
I do.
I don't.
It's for the promo on Fox 13 that never ran.
That story was never supposed to come out. That was a weekend in Vegas. All right, come
Didn't
on.
take as long to put it on you as it did
All
on
right,
Curtis.
man.
See ya.
Later.
93.3 KJR FM Sports Headlines.
All right, boys and girls, here we go. Headlines on Softy and Dick with no Dick. Jackson Felts, Hugh Millen with us until 6 p.m. tonight. Headlines on this Monday afternoon, brought to you by your friends at Frost Brewed Coors Light. Choose chill, baby, with the Kraken hosting the LA Kings tonight, the final home game of the season. The boys over the weekend eliminated from playoff contention. 3 games left to go. LA tonight, at Vegas Wednesday, Thursday at Colorado. It's the 4th time in 5 years the Kraken have missed the playoffs. More news in the NHL. Veteran goaltender Jonathan Quick retiring at the age of 40 years old. He'll start tonight for the Rangers against Florida, and that is it after tonight. Rory McIlroy, the 4th player to win consecutive Masters over the weekend, joining a list that includes Tiger Woods, Jack Nicklaus, and Nick Faldo. Baseball news, some sad news. Former Astros manager Phil Garner, who managed the Astros to their very first World Series appearance, has passed away at the age of 76 years old.
And here we go.
And now, 2 goofy, wacko, out-of-touch homers. Just brutal radio. Just horrible.
Live
41 yards
from Elliott Bay.
Can you feel it now?
This is Softy and Dick.
All righty, boys and girls, here we go on a Monday afternoon right here on 93.3 KJR FM. Once again, Softy, Jackson, Dick with no Dick. Hugh Millen in for Dick Fane this afternoon. One more day, Huey. One more day, and then you can get back to your normal, amazing, fun-filled life. We thank you so much for being here and filling in for Mr. Fane. We know they are big shoes to fill, and you have filled them with honor. You have filled them with integrity, and we cannot thank you enough for your service the last week and a half, my friend.
It's not going to work.
Come on. What do you want?
It's not going to work.
What do you want? You want candy? Money? What do you want? What do you want?
No, I'll take a shot at my chin. Come on. I don't have to forget this fluff.
Well, here's what we got. Yeah, here's what we got going on. The Mariners-Astros wrapping up. We'll get to that very soon. I never thought I'd have on my bingo card, man. All you need is a series against the Astros to get the offense going. I mean, you would think it'd take a series against the White Sox or the A's or maybe somebody of that ilk, but this is maybe a really bad Houston team that we'll talk about later on this afternoon. Bill Krueger is going to join us at 5. Whit Watson from the Golf Channel is going to be with us at 4 o'clock as well to kind of recap the Masters, Hugh, where the story isn't just Rory McIlroy winning back-to-back Masters for the first time since Tiger and the 4th player overall. A lot of people are getting on CBS for their coverage during the weekend, especially on Sunday, late in the round on Sunday. So we'll talk to Whit about all of that. But, dude, we are within 10 days of the mock draft. A week from Wednesday. The real draft a week from Thursday. Do we have any spots left, Jackson Felts, by the way?
We just have just a few.
Just a few. So jump on the website, 93.3KJR.com. Sign up for the mock draft a week from Wednesday. Dino's in Renton. I'll be there. Hugh will be there. Jackson will be there. They're letting Jackson out of the studio, Hugh, for this one next Wednesday at Dino's. Grand prize, $1,000 to Delta Airlines. Big thanks to Simply Seattle, Twin Peaks Restaurant, the whole thing. So we're getting close. We're getting close to finding out what the Hawks will do to rectify, all of a sudden, Hugh, a lot of positions. Like, I remember you and me talking in like November, December, and we would sit around and say, okay, what if this was April? Or what if this was March? What would we be looking to upgrade on this football team? And for weeks and weeks and weeks, the story was always Anthony Bradford at right guard. Yeah. And it kind of feels like with all the movement they've had and the players that they've lost, that Anthony Bradford and upgrading the right guard spot doesn't get talked about nearly as much anymore. It's the running back. It's the cornerback position after losing a starter like Reek Woolen. I mean, God, all we'd hear from you is they got to get better at right guard, and we haven't mentioned that position much at all lately.
Not much. I still think that right guard is the weakest position out of 11.
Right.
I mean, somebody's got to be the weakest, right?
Yes.
Even if you can debate, whether or not that weak position is strong or moderate or mildly weak, what have you, you can just acknowledge that that's the area on the offense that needs the most upgrading. That's my opinion. Defensively, look, a lot of people walked out the door, and we put some numbers to it, and you take the 32 teams in free agency and you say, all right, take the total, not the total contracts, but the total amount of guaranteed, because that's really the real value, right? And it's a way to measure it. And then because some guys are 2-year contracts, some are 3, what have you, then you take that guaranteed divided by the average years of the contract. And the list is almost identical whether you do that last process or not. Anyways, bottom line, the Seahawks have the number 1 net loss. There's an asterisk to that.
Okay.
In reality, the Packers have the most net loss, but Malik Willis, the quarterback, on average, it's $45 million over 3 years guaranteed. So that $15 million, that puts Seattle, if you take that as an asterisk, because that really is not the picture of what the Packers look like. It's certainly a picture of their depth, right? If Jordan Love gets hurt, but the picture of the Packers as they want to be constituted, as Jordan Love is their quarterback, if you accept that asterisk, then you can say factually the Seahawks have the most net losses of all teams in the NFL in terms of the players going out, the talent going out, and the talent going in.
Right. Because they spent a lot of money on guys they already had, like Rashid Shaheed, obviously. So, it's funny because this is another year, and I want to get to the cornerback position here in a minute, Hugh. This is another year where we went into free agency, and the Seahawks had a boatload of money. And another year where they really did nothing of significance from the outside in free agency. So I think this is another example of how the Seahawks operate when they have a boatload of money to spend in free agency. The odds of them going out and getting a big-time, big-ticket free agent from somebody else's team, 9 times out of 10, not going to happen. They'll spend that money on their own guys. They'll spread it around, wait for contract negotiations like Jackson Smith and Jigba, Devin Witherspoon. But I'm looking at the cornerback position right now. We all like Josh Jobe. We love Devin Witherspoon. Okay, then what? Nehemiah Pritchett at corner. Shamar Jean Charles at corner. Noah Igbenange at corner. I'm sure I butchered his name, by the way. They only have 5 cornerbacks on the entire roster, man. So at some point in time, Hugh, either next weekend or when training camp casualties happen in July and August, we know they're going to add corners because they ain't starting the year with 5. I can tell you that.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And so that's one of the things you say, okay, would Seattle be compelled to use that 32nd pick? I mean, I think most of us feel like the most likely use of the 32nd pick is just to trade down a little bit, get a second rounder and add other picks. But if they were to go ahead and exercise the 32nd pick, is there a corner that's worthy of that? And is the corner position of need? And so let's just kind of review. So Tariq Woolen walks out the door, $12 million to the Eagles on a prove-it deal. He had 890 snaps in the postseason. In the divisional, he had 41, then against the Rams 40, and then the Super Bowl 48. So the dude was playing a lot, and a element of what Seattle did. Now this comes into play when we're talking about how did Mike Macdonald evolve his defense. Much of this had to do with Nick Emmanwori missing 4 games. I mean, he played 4 plays against the 49ers early on, gets hurt. But if you look at the propensity to play dime, the dime defense obviously is 6 DBs. And yet Seattle, you got Nick Emmanwori, once he was healthy, he's always going to play essentially as a Sam linebacker. But when Seattle played their dime, you got the 2 safeties, and it was Kobe Bryant and it was Julian Love. They tend to be the back end guys, and Ty Okada now figures to be with the absence of Kobe Bryant. Then you got 2 safeties in the back end. Then you've got the corners on the outside, and so you've got generally that was that was Josh Jobe, and that was Tariq Woolen. And then on the inside you had Emmanwori and Witherspoon as what are called curl flat players. What does that mean? If it's a single defense, it's like you're just look at the outfield and the infield in baseball. It's like the third baseman and the first baseman. Yeah. There are some defenses where you say, well, we've got 4 defenders deep. Now imagine the shortstop goes back and he plays as the 4th outfielder, and you only got 3 infielders. You've got a second baseman kind of right over the bag in second base. And then the first and third baseman, now you would say, well, wow, they have a lot of ground to cover, right? Because there's only 3 infielders now. Well, that's exactly what you have. When Seattle played dime, here's a couple facts about this. In weeks 1 through 9,
okay,
so that is 8 games.
Right.
They averaged 2.5 plays in dime. From that point on, from week 10 until through the Super Bowl, they averaged 18. They went from 2.5 average. There was a big jump in week 10 to 18. And by the way, in the entire season, they played the most dime snaps, 36, in the Super Bowl. So they were trending that way, the use of the dime defense. Now, when they played the dime, they played the 4 deep, what's called cover quarters, 18.5%, and then cover 6 is a modification. I don't want to get too X-y and O-y here, but you've got about 40% of the time. Here's what you have. If I'm a quarterback going against Seahawks, I see Eamon Wari as a cruel flat defender. Man, again, this could be on both sides or one side, but just imagine a 3-man infield, and you go, oh, all I have to do is hit a ground ball down the third baseline or the first baseline, and those guys aren't going to be able to get it. Well, that's what you look at Eamon Wari. He covers so much damn ground, and Witherspoon covers so much down ground that they eat up space. And so the dime became a very big part of it. So Witherspoon is a versatile player. He's playing less and less on the inside, but when he does play on the inside, he can really cover ground. So all of this to say is that there is a need, in my opinion, to replace Woolen.
Yeah, no doubt. And, look, I don't think we're talking about, for the Seahawks, we're not talking about some of the top corners in the draft. Like, we're not talking about McCoy from Tennessee or Terrell from Clemson. I don't know if you want to jump into D'Angelo Pons, who's one of my favorite players ever. Had that opening pick 6 against Oregon. Remember that in the college football playoff. But guys like Chris Johnson, San Diego State, Colton Hood out of Tennessee, Brandon Cease from South Carolina. Cease, sorry, from South Carolina. Yeah. Is there a guy on that list that you've looked at, that you've studied, that you think maybe fits this defense and what McDonald's trying to do, maybe more than the others?
Well, we'll get to that in a second, but I do think it's important to frame it in this way, these stats, David.
Okay.
If you go over the last 10 years and you say, okay, are you likely, is Seattle likely to get the first cornerback on the board? You just mentioned, a couple of the candidates.
Right.
Or the second or the third or the fourth. So I've got the summaries. This is all over the last 10 drafts. If you're sitting at 32, the 32nd, not 1 out of 10 years are you going to get the first corner. The range is the third pick to the 30th, and the average is the 11th pick in the draft. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Okay. The first cornerback off the board averages to be, in the last 10 years, the 11th overall pick. Okay. What about, you say, I want the second cornerback? Guess what? In the last 10 years, 0 for 10. You ain't getting the second cornerback off the board. The range there, or the average there is 17. So then the third cornerback, the average is the 25th pick in the draft, and they're only 2 out of 10. Are you only 2 years out of 10? Mm-hmm. Are you getting the third cornerback off the board? Mm-hmm. Fourth cornerback. Well, that averages the 32nd pick. And 4 out of 10 years, if you're sitting there at 32, you would have got the fourth cornerback. Now it starts to get more realistic for Seattle. The fifth cornerback.
Okay.
Well, the average is the 37th. The average is the 37th spot. 6 out of 10 years, you would get the fifth if you were sitting at 36. So the majority of the time. And then lastly, the sixth cornerback. That is the average is the 42nd overall pick. The sixth cornerback is the average is the 42nd. And in 9 out of 10 years, you would get the sixth cornerback. But that's not even.
Why are we stopping at 6? Why not go straight to 10 or 11?
I can.
I mean, come on, man.
I mean, if that's not getting too
people
tedious.
want to go deep here, man. This isn't deep enough. This isn't the shallow part of the pool. This is the deep end of the pool. How far to get the 15th best cornerback? We want to know.
So I don't know. I think the numbers, to me, going into this, I say, okay, what at first I say, well, I'm not going to scout the first corner because I know they're not going to, they're not going to get the first corner. Well, okay, what about the second? So I said, well, let me see, how likely is it they're going to get? Well, I just
let me
gave
ask you a
the
question. Time out. Let me ask you a question because I'm just a little bit confused here. When you say second best, third best, fourth best, fifth best, whatever, are you just talking about the fourth corner to go?
The fourth corner to
gotcha.
go.
Okay, because I was going to say, who defines best, right?
No, of course. There's no way to know. So Seattle could, in theory, they could get the fourth corner off the board.
Right.
And they could legitimately, now they'll come out in the press conference, we'll kind of roll our eyes, but they could legitimately say, hey, he was the number one corner on our board. He was the fourth overall corner.
Of course.
But he was our number one. And it might be true.
Yes, or it could be complete bogus. But that's how you pump somebody up. Yes, we all get it. Right.
But so I'm not saying that they won't get their first, second, third, fourth, or fifth corner at 32. Right. I'm just trying to put a lens on what's the likely, approximately. This isn't meant to be like a detailed, like, okay, it's just kind of a broad view of like, okay, what's the takeaway?
Right.
If you just say on average, judging over the last 10 years, let's just put it in simple words, not numbers. If you look over the last decade, we can say on average that Seattle's going to get probably if they take the corner, it'll probably be the fourth or the fifth corner off the board. Is that a simple summary?
Yes.
Yeah. So meaning they're unlikely to get their third or their second.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't know, man.
I should say the third or the second.
Yeah. I feel comfortable that whoever the Seahawks draft at cornerback, I felt really comfortable when Pete Carroll was here that guy was going to have a better shot of succeeding in Seattle because of who he was playing for defensively. And I still feel that way, right? I mean, like, you got to give Pete Carroll a little credit for the whole Rick Woolen experiment, right? This dude was drafted out of San Antonio. Is that correct? Or whatever the hell he was at.
Yep. UT San Antonio.
Yeah.
Yep.
And had barely played football. And now turned himself into a guy who's making, whatever it is, $14 million. I mean, it's only on a 1-year deal, but I remember him doing an interview with us in training camp that year, and he basically looked at me and Dick and said, you got to give me a break. I've barely played this position, let alone the game. So I still give Pete Carroll credit for that. I give Pete Carroll credit for the Devin Witherspoon situation. You can argue that Spoon is so good it wouldn't have mattered what team he went to, but my point is this. I have that same feeling now here with Mike McDonald. That, you know what, the Seahawks may not end up with a second or third best corner, but if they end up with the fourth or fifth best guy, does that guy have a much better chance to turn into maybe the second or third best corner in that draft because of who he's playing for?
I'll tell you, yes, and how they're coached and how they identify, they've been very good at that.
Yeah.
I would say this, keep this in mind. While we were sitting there hand-wringing about the Rick Woolen penalty in the fourth quarter of the NFC Championship game.
Right.
And my take was there's two separate arguments and topics there. Number one, inexcusable by Rick Woolen, hard stop. Number two, I think the officials did a very poor job of how they handled that. They could have done much more to prevent that.
Right.
Okay. Those two facts can be true.
Yes.
So in the midst of us being aggravated, justifiably so, about Rick Woolen's part. And by the way, Mike McDonald admitted that he made a big mistake on the very next play, putting Rick Woolen in man-to-man no help on Puka Nacua. And Puka runs a short out and up, a double move, gets him to bite. They get a touchdown on the very next play, right? So all of this was happening, but we forget in the fourth quarter, Rick Woolen made a great play on a post where he used his length and his acceleration to get a pass defense down a field. So his mind wasn't out of the game. And then on the 3rd and 4 down the goal line, that like arguably the most important sequence of the entire season. In fact, I will make that argument. On 3rd down, they played man-to-man, and who was covering Puka Nacua? Rick Woolen.
Mm-hmm.
And that tells me something, and they just thought it was a better matchup. So Witherspoon, as great as he is, we don't have to sit here and speculate. Mike McDonald, all I have to do is watch the damn tape.
Right.
On cover one, which is man-to-man, who did Mike McDonald in the fourth quarter of the NFC Championship game entrust to cover Puka Nacua? The answer is Reek Woolen. So, I think that rarely, Dave, this is our 28th year doing the draft, the mock draft, the draft analysis, right? How many times have I ever focused on a singular other player in the division where Seattle's got to think about that?
Yeah, not very often.
Less than a handful, right? Maybe, if ever. I mean, I don't even remember. But Puka Nacua's got my focus because that dude seems like, when I watch the Rams, I always go, this guy is the best football player on the earth, not playing quarterback. And you say, well, what about Myles Garrett? He had 25 sacks. That's a fair retort. If you want to argue Myles Garrett, I'm not going to fight you on the beach over that one. But Puka Nacua, when I'm like, oh my God, this football player is so strong. He has got to be the strongest, functionally strongest receiver I've ever seen. Maybe there's a recency bias on that, but the point is, to me, if you let's piece all these together. If you've got a propensity to play more dime, which they do, and when you play man to man, you had Reek Woolen covering Puka, and Puka is as devastating as I think we all, and probably most of us think he is. If you're going to draft a corner with 32, or let's say trade down to early mid-second round, I'm thinking about Puka Nacua. I just am with that dude. Sorry. Now, I'm not saying that it would be a deal breaker, but in an ideal world, I want him to be able to cover Puka and cover
Absolutely.
one.
Well, yeah, but again, you got Reek Woolen in the 5th round? Right? Correct?
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Again, I mean, that guy could be, who knows where that guy is.
It could be one of the Huskies.
Absolutely. Let's do
Takario
this.
Or Ephesians.
Absolutely. Let's get a break. Going to come back, and by the time we return, the Mariner game will likely be over, and we'll see if a sweep of the Astros is complete next on 93.3 KJR FM. Hi, boys and girls. It's Santi back here again from my friends at Bellevue Rare Coins, 4 locations, including Tacoma and Linwood, where you might be sitting on something of real value and have no idea. There's a story about a lady that was taking some silverware sets to Goodwill on a whim. She drove by the Issaquah Bellevue Rare Coins location, said, you know what, I'm here. I may as well stop in and see what this stuff is worth before I give it away. Found out she was sitting on $6,000 worth of silverware. That just goes to show you never know. You might have something of real value in your house. If you do think that you do, take it to the only place I trust to evaluate my valuables, and that's my friends at Bellevue Rare Coins. You always get the no-pressure, hassle-free evaluation of your stuff. And by the way, they're famous for their high payouts. Jump on the web and find a Bellevue Rare Coins near you now at BellevueRareCoins.com. We still don't want to have some lawyer showing up at our front door with a lawsuit because we did not properly credit the broadcast, man. So big thanks to the Mariners, MLB TV, Aaron Goldsmith, Angie Mentink, Ryan Roland Smith's fourth grade teacher in Australia, somewhere out there, Mike Blowers. Miss you, Mike, whatever you're up to. But Hugh, if you would have told me before the year that you're going to play a series that will be a get healthy series for the Mariners, meaning fill in the blank. You never know how good you are until you play a series against blah, blah, blah. I would have said maybe the White Sox, maybe Minnesota, who's actually playing pretty well, maybe the A's. I never would have thought that playing the Astros would be the series that you would need to get off to a decent start and kind of get things going in the right direction. But the Mariners all of a sudden sweep Houston 4 games in a row in Seattle. They scored 40 runs in the first 13 games of the year. They just scored 29 in the last 4 against an Astro team that right now looks pretty bad. I mean, the Mariner bats just demolished Astros starting pitching, and I realize they got some guys that are banged up right now, a lot of guys that are banged up as a matter of fact, but the starting pitching for the Astros, Hugh, had a 13.1 ERA
Unreal.
in this series, and nobody pitched well. Imai was terrible. McCullers was terrible. Burrows today. Bolton yesterday couldn't even last till the second inning. They just slaughtered Houston Astros starting pitching the last 4 days.
Yeah, they're missing their ace, but from a Mariner perspective, I assume most people didn't see the M's game today. One thing in looking at this, Raleigh, Rodriguez, and Naylor all had 2 hits.
Yes.
And, of course, Naylor had the 2 bombs. So just the idea of them creeping up, digging out the hole, that's the prime thing, in my opinion.
Yes.
Is the 4-game sweep, if you just figure the odds, if you're a 4-win team, and I know that that's not representative of their quality, but just even if you just go, let's just go like, middle school math, if there was a 50-50 chance of each game in this, they only had a 6.25% chance of the sweep.
Right.
6.25%.
Right.
So just looking at simple numbers, how unlikely was it to get this sweep? But then to have the 3 guys in the middle of the lineup who had been struggling to feel like they're digging out of their hole, this is probably more than anybody could have expected.
Right. Well, Julio raised his average 70 points in the last 4 games. I mean, there's not going to be any series the rest of the way where you can see a guy raise his average 70 points because he's got way more at-bats and way more games. But he was
143 and now 212.
Now he's hitting 212, right. But which is actually 69. I just rounded it off to 70 to make it sound good. But he had 0 home runs and 2 RBIs in the previous 13 games. And then he goes out against the Astros and goes 7 for 17 with a bomb, 2 ribbies at a double. Josh Naylor did not have a bomb the entire year, and then has 2 today and 5 RBIs against Houston. So he found a swing a little bit. Cal Raleigh still kind of home run strikeout a little bit, but you know what? That's fine. If the guy hits 40 home runs and strikes out 150 times, I'm fine with that. But I just think for me, and we'll talk to Bill Krueger about this, Huey, at 5 o'clock tonight, you're exactly right that they had to start to climb out of the hole. They're 8-9. They're a game under 500. I mean, they could have easily been an 8-7 baseball team after 15 games and just lost the last 2 to be 8-9. And people would be looking at this record totally differently. The thing that I'm curious about now is the American League. Because you've got, look at this thing, dude. Bring up the league. Bring up the league standings, by the way. Yeah. Minnesota is the best team, along with the Guardians, at 9-7. Behind them, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams that have 8 wins and 9 teams that have 7 wins or more. And everybody else has 6 or more. Everybody in the American League is within 3 games of each other right now. 9-7 versus 6-11. And the team that's 6-11 is the team you just saw in the Houston Astros.
Yeah.
So I always thought that last year was a bit of an anomaly, that the American League would not be that wide open and there would not be that much parity again this year. I mean, look, it's only been a few weeks, so we got a long way to go, but so far it's looking like a repeat of last season, dude.
Yeah, only two out of 15 that are more than one game over 500, and those 2 are 2 games. Yeah,
Right.
Crazy, right?
Right.
So the M's,
they're 8-9, and they're a game and a half out of the best record in the American League.
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah, but 1 game out of the division,
Correct.
And who thinks that the Athletics are going to stay there? They're tied with the Rangers at 8-7. So really, I don't want to say incredible, but unexpected to have that type of sweep. I mean, 4-game series just aren't that common anyways, and to sweep it, this is just the perfect tonic.
Well, I think it's just, again, you said it yourself, man. They just had to start to kind of climb out of this hole they were in a little bit here. It was never obviously too big of a hole because it was still week 2, week 3 of the regular season. But at some point, it does become a little bit hard to manage. And if you let Houston come in here, for example, and did the opposite, and you're sitting here at 4-13 right now, I mean, that's just a totally different ball game. So this was big for them. And I also think, big for them because, look, I mean, they're showing that they still have superior starting pitching, I think, to maybe every team in the American League and definitely every team in the American League West. I know that Luis Castillo got rocked a little bit on Saturday, but Emerson Hancock being your 5th starter, 5 innings, 3 runs against this offense, I'll take it. Logan Gilbert, 7 innings, a run, I'll take it. George Kirby, 7 2/3, couple of earned runs, I'll take it. Both those guys, Logan yesterday and Kirby today, 2 walks and 13 Ks against what's a pretty decent hitting lineup. Maybe not as good as they've been, but they're definitely better than their pitching staff. If there's a problem with the Astros right now, it's their freaking pitching, not their hitting. And I think, again, we are going to be reminded week in and week out that we are going to be able to rely yet again on superior starting pitching almost every series the Mariners play, and they did it again this time.
Yeah, and as you said, Munoz, oddly, Saturday might be, I'm not saying one of these like season-long catalysts, but just maybe for this little region of the season, that what JP pulled off on Saturday night, might have been given a lift. Well, you say, well, they had already won Friday night, granted, but
did you watch that Munoz game, by the way? Sorry to interrupt. Did you watch the Munoz game over the weekend? Did you see what happened in that game, by the way?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't
Rivas,
see every pitch. But yeah.
So Rivas just botched a play and throw. I mean, it was a hard hit ball. It would have been a hard play to make, but he could not corral that. And then there was a throw, I think, from Arozarena that was right on target to Cole Young to get a guy out at second base, and he dropped it. Right? I mean, just the defense with Munoz out there over the weekend. If you're talking about that one game, there is some context to that, I think, where Munoz didn't pitch great. He's got to wiggle out of that stuff, but the defense didn't help him either, man.
Yeah, no doubt. And I put a particular eye on Hancock because he has just, less data points upon which to draw conclusions. And so, each start for him is amplified when we're trying to say, okay, what exactly is he to this organization? I don't mean just the major league team. I mean the organization, and so he didn't have his best, but there's still reason to believe, hey, for a 5th starter, this young guy, future's real bright, but it wasn't as strong as his first outing.
I think what they've asked him to do, I'm not even talking about this year, I'm going back to last year, because let's face it, every start he's made since the beginning of last year has been a start that was supposed to go originally to somebody else, right? Every start he's made, I don't think you could have asked for much more from a guy that's basically your number 6 guy. So another topic for Krueger at 5 o'clock tonight. We're going to break, a little fun with audio. Hugh in for Dick on this Monday afternoon right here on 93.3 KJR FM.
It's fun with audio.
Jimmy G, porn star Jimmy, Mr. Garoppolo.
Now, let's have some fun with audio.
All right, Hugh, Whit Watson from the Golf Channel, who's worked 10 Masters tournaments, by the way. My God, he will join us coming up. Next segment, recap the crazy weekend from Augusta. More on today's Mariners sweep of the Astros. They won today. They took 4 from Houston and are now just a game and a half out of Minnesota for the best record all of a sudden in the American League. How about that? Bill Krueger at 5. All right, a little fun with audio / hey, did you hear that here in this Monday afternoon? Hey, Hugh, did you happen to hear that?
What's that, Dick?
We start, Huey, with the Masters on Saturday. As Rory McIlroy teed off on the 17th hole, one fan in the crowd channeled Mel Gibson from the movie Ransom.
Give me back my son.
Look at the left. Let's keep an eye on it. It is down the left side.
Give me back my son.
Okay, so I don't know if you've seen the movie Ransom, but it's about a guy whose son gets kidnapped, and Mel Gibson's the main character. I think he owned an airline or something like that, whatever. So here's what I think about this. I think some people may find that funny. Maybe me 30 years ago would have found that funny. Let me ask you a question. Would you ever go into the Sistine Chapel and yell something like that? Would you ever walk into St. Peter's Basilica at the Vatican and scream out something that makes you sound and look like a jackass? Augusta National is the Sistine Chapel of golf, in my opinion. And that guy that yelled that in Rory's face, complete and utter jackass.
Give me back my son.
Thank you. And I hope he never gets to step foot ever again on the grounds of Augusta National.
Give me back my son.
That's my opinion.
I think it's a very good take. I agree with it. I don't think I could match or exceed that. I would just say it did make me chuckle.
Yeah.
So I think the immediate funny bone, it hit my funny bone.
Give me back my son.
I've been to a lot of golf tournaments, been to a few majors, been to the Masters once.
Yeah.
And
could you ever imagine doing something like that, Hugh Merlin?
I can't, and I can't imagine any friend of mine.
Yes.
You know that like you need to be that much of the center of attention, and like you said, in that environment, there's just something really kind of special. And look, I get it. You know, Dave, we have to
save that for the waste management.
I love golf.
Save it for Scottsdale. What are you doing, man? Come on.
Yeah. I go to that tournament every year. Yeah, that's a totally different enterprise. Yeah, if you want to do it there, then it fits a lot better. And look, you love golf. I love golf. I mean, I think that those of us in this camp open ourselves up to criticism from those who are not in the camp of, don't take yourself so damn seriously. You know, you stuffy golfers. Like I get there's that feeling out there, but for anybody who has even a shred of enjoyment and respect for the game,
right?
That's just kind of frat guy stuff. At a time that doesn't call for frat guy stuff.
Give me back my son.
Hey, Hugh, did you happen to hear that?
What's that, Dick?
Sports anchor Kevin Lewis on ABC 28 in Tampa Bay was reading a story over the weekend about the local Rowdies soccer team, but accidentally said the Rays instead. The problem was Kevin thought they were recording, but they were actually live on the air.
The Rays off to their best start in 5 years. Head coach Dominic Casciato has his team playing with some venom on both sides of the ball. Tampa. Oh, I'm the worst. Sorry. Rowdies. Okay. 3, 2, 1. The Rowdies off to their best start in 5 years. Head coach Dominic Casciato has his team playing with some venom on both sides of the ball.
So normally, I mean, you've sat in front of a camera before. Yeah. There's normally a light that goes on that will let you know kind of what's happening. And I know somebody else on this radio station who went on the air and thought he was being recorded, but it was actually live. We have a drop for that, by the way, that I would play here. But the electrical fire that we had on Friday melted the entire sound system, and so you're in luck, Hugh. We don't have access to it.
Yeah, I set that fire
right now. Yeah. You son of a bitch! I said, "Is this live?" But yeah, I don't know. I mean, thank God he didn't say something else. By the way, right?
I'm the worst.
Well, hey, we all misspeak. I called the Mariners the Seahawks about 15 minutes ago. So that happened. But you know what? You better catch yourself quickly, right?
No doubt. 3, 4, or 5. You tell me, Jackson, which one you want to go to.
3.
All right. Hey, Hugh, did you happen to hear that?
What's that, Dick?
Before Saturday night's Orioles game against the Giants, Chris Ullman did the national anthem in Baltimore. Now, Hugh, Ullman is a 4-time whistling champion and member of the Whistling Hall of Fame. And divided baseball fans.
I have a vote for that.
With this performance of the national anthem. Well, I mean, thank God it wasn't a guy from the Belching Hall of Fame or the Farting Hall of Fame. It was a guy from the Whistling Hall of Fame. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think you kind of feel bad in some ways for these marketing people that they got to find 81 different people to do the national anthem. And can you make room for something that's a little bit unique, but also pays respect to the song and what it means? I think there's room for that. Don't you?
I was okay with it. I bet it's not terribly just like sonically different from a piccolo. Not meaning to offend the piccolo.
That's what I was thinking.
Out there,
same exact thing.
Right, and so and I agree. You and I were tracking the same way because I say, well, I wouldn't want to hear it for the Super Bowl, but if it's 1 out of 81 games in April and the dude's in the Hall of Fame, it actually there was a little bit of artistry there. I don't know. I wasn't offended. Put this way, if that's the worst thing that happens in my week, I have to hear the national anthem by that whistler. I've had a good week.
No doubt. All right, how about number 5, Jackson? Here we go, baby. Hey, Hugh, did you happen to hear that?
What's that, Dick?
All right, longtime award-winning sports writer Jeff Pearlman went on TikTok last week and shared his thoughts, Hugh, about the situation with our friend Diana Rossini and Patriots head coach Mike Vrabel.
I also think there's a huge double standard. Like if I were doing a story about Mike Vrabel, let's just say I was assigned a piece, and he's like, yeah, I'm just gonna, why don't you hang out with me at the pool today? You can interview me then. And I'm like, great. I hang out with him for the day on the pool. And at one point he's like, oh, my back stiffens up. I'm gonna go in the hot tub. You wanna go in the hot tub? And I'll be like, yeah, I have a bad back, sure. Like nobody would be like, reporter Jeff Pearlman has cozy relationship with Mike Vrabel. It is a woman thing, and it is unfair, but a reality for women reporters that they really have to be, it's unfair, but cautious when writing about, in particular, men. And like, it's just such a painful double standard. Is it smart of her to go in a hot tub with an NFL coach? I know it's unfair, but no, it's bad professional judgment. And this is playing out why. I don't know if she did anything wrong. I'm actually going to assume she didn't. I just don't believe that she was having an affair with him. Maybe I'm wrong. But, like, unfortunately, perceptions often trump reality.
So I don't want to get into all this now about why Rossini's role is different than Vrabel. We talked about this a bit Friday, and we can revisit this later. In the interest of time, we got a break here. I will just say this, that the Patriots today said that Mike Vrabel will not be participating in the Patriots pre-draft press conference, which he did a year ago. And the head coach always takes part in the pre-draft press conference.
He's probably saying, throw me in the briar patch. By the way, I don't know who made that comment. That's a dumbass take.
Jeff Pearlman.
Jeff Pearlman's the guy. Let me count the ways that was a stupid take.
Well, but hang on, because again, we can address this later, but the Vrabel thing is interesting. He's not going to speak to the media before the draft, and I don't know, man. I mean, that to me makes it sound like he's got something to hide. I don't know. What do you think? I mean, if you were Mike Vrabel and you did nothing wrong and you were not having an affair and you wanted to clear the air, first of all, you already would have done it, number one. And number two, I would tell my boss, you damn well let me talk. I'm not going to sit this one out because the longer I stay silent, the more people think I'm up to no good.
That's a fair point. Then have a separate press conference. What he doesn't want, if you want to defend him, he doesn't want a press conference about the draft to be co-opted by all of these scandal questions.
Right.
So if I think he should be compelled to, he could call a press conference, and guess what? There'd be a lot of damn cameras at that press conference.
In Boston, absolutely. Well, we'll get to this coming up later in the show. Whit Watson, Golf Channel, going to recap Rory, going to recap CBS, going to recap Give Me Back My Son, the whole thing from Augusta next on 93.3 KJR FM.
from the Star Reynolds Sports Desk, your 93.3 KJR FM Sports Headlines.
All righty, boys and girls. Headlines on Softy and Dick with no Dick. Jackson here. Hugh Milner for Dick Fain. Brought to you by friends of Frost Brewed Coors Light. Choose chill, baby. Mariners get the sweep over the Astros. How about this today? Josh Naylor, 2 home runs, 5 runs batted in. The M's now 9-1 against the Astros in their last 10 games going back to last year. And by the way, before Ichiro's bat on his statue broke on Friday, the Mariners were averaging 3 runs a game. They've been averaging almost 7.5 since the bat broke on Friday night at the unveiling. So what are we breaking next, by the way, is the question. What else we got? NHL, the Kraken tonight, last regular season home game against the LA Kings. The boys were obviously eliminated from the playoffs over the weekend. 3 games left. The Kings tonight, Vegas on Wednesday, and Thursday wrapping up the year at Colorado. Rory McIlroy over the weekend, the 4th player to win consecutive Masters, joining Tiger Woods, Jack Nicklaus, and Nick Faldo. And soccer, the MLS, Jackson's favorite sport, the second leg of their CONCACAF series with Tigres. This is the quarterfinals. Is that correct, Jackson? Resumes on Wednesday at Lumen Field at 8:30. And Phil Garner, some sad news in baseball. 3-time All-Star infielder who led the Astros to their very first World Series as their manager, has passed away at the age of 76 years old. Well, joining us right now on the radio show, he is one of the best when it comes to covering golf out there. By the way, 10 Masters. 10 Masters this guy has covered, including another one for our friends at the Golf Channel. Our buddy Whit Watson joining us right now on the radio program. Whit, how are you, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. Good to talk to you guys again out there, my friends on the West Coast.
Yeah, it's great to have you back on. And before we get into all the details, some of the criticisms of CBS over the weekend, all that, give us your thoughts on how impressed you are by what Rory McIlroy just did yesterday at Augusta.
He proved that he can win a major championship when he's not playing his best golf. And I think that is the next step for a guy like McIlroy. He didn't have it. He didn't have it on Saturday, and he didn't have it on Sunday, but he had enough to keep his head above water. I mean, Cam Young could have won that golf tournament if he had made 1 or 2 birdies on the second 9, but he didn't make any. He made 9 pars and just, kind of walked his way into the clubhouse. If Justin Rose doesn't make a mistake on 12, Rose, I thought, had a shot at it. I mean, Scotty Scheffler just ran out of holes. He began the weekend 12 shots off the lead, and history is going to show that he finished second by 1 shot, but that's not the full story. McIlroy didn't have his best stuff. His first 2 major championship wins were by a combined 16 shots. He was the phenom that just outran the field. And I think what you saw now is Rory 2.0. When he doesn't have his best stuff, he can still win.
Well, let's kind of look at Rory's career a little bit. So his first major win was 2011, the U.S. Open. And then by 2014, he had won his 4th. Within a 4-season span, he wins 4 majors, and he's 3/4 of the way to the Grand Slam. Then he goes 11 years with nothing. And it seemed like maybe the monkey got off his back a year ago with his win in Augusta. And a lot of people theorized, hey, this could now liberate him, take the pressure off. And now we could see a guy that, threatens to be considered one of, maybe the greatest of all time or in that discussion of the very greatest of all time. What's your take on how we assess his career?
Well, let's go back to the last 12 months. I mean, after he wins, or in the same year, in the same 12-month span that he wins the Masters, he also won Pebble Beach. He won a Players' Championship. He won his national championship, the Irish Open. Mm-hmm. He played his 8th Ryder Cup team for Europe. He won the DP World Tour individual points title. If Scheffler doesn't win 6 times last year, including 2 majors, Rory is the PGA Tour Player of the Year. He had one of the greatest seasons in memory, and if Scheffler doesn't do what he does, Rory is hands down the best player in the world. That span that you're talking about, you view it as a slump, or not a slump, but you wonder why he wasn't winning more majors. And we're only wondering that because the first couple that he won, as I said, he won in such record-setting fashion that we thought, okay, this is the bar. Well, you know, that bar was unsustainable, right? I mean, he was a phenom. He was a comet. And then he just kind of leveled out. An 11-year gap, I don't dispute what you're talking about. I was as surprised as anybody that he didn't win during that span, win a major I'm talking about. But who's to say? I mean, Phil didn't win his first major until he was in his 30s, and he won 6. You know, once he snapped the schneid, he won 6.
Mm-hmm.
Who's to say that McIlroy wouldn't win 5 more from this point? I wouldn't bet against it. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, Whit Watson with us. You can find him on the web at whitwatson.com. Does the Making the Cut podcast, of course, on iHeart. He's covered the Masters 10 times, by the way, in person. Magical place, I know. What was your take on the idiot that yelled, "Give me back my son," when Rory teed off on 17 on Saturday? Because a lot of people have your exact reaction. They start to laugh about it. And then I think, what kind of a jackass does that at the Sistine Chapel of golf tournaments?
My reaction is, I hope you enjoyed your last ever Masters.
Right.
I hope it was worth it, because you're never going back. That's the last time you'll ever be on that property. So, yeah, hope it was worth it. And he didn't have his phone, so he can't post it on social media. So I don't know what you were thinking.
Yeah.
How is the Masters now in terms of, they keep trying to keep up with the modern game in terms of lengthening the tee boxes and what have you? I mean, have they kind of run out of real estate? Is this going to be, the picture we're going to see from Augusta for several years to come?
I mean, real estate-wise, there's really no place else they can go. And the chairman of the club, Fred Ridley, spoke during his State of the Masters address on Wednesday how they support the USGA and the R&A on the concept of rolling back distance on the golf ball in 2030. And he said, we, Augusta National, have the means to accommodate for longer distances. I thought that was kind of a surprising statement because geographically they don't. I guess what he means is they can do different things with speed. They can soften the golf course. They can make it drier. They've got a sub-air system underneath the entire golf course, so they can make it fiery and firm. But his point was other iconic venues like Pebble and Aronimink and places like that, they don't have those luxuries. No, but in terms of lengthening the golf course, unless they can start condemning streets around Augusta National, they don't have the property to do that. So this is as long as it's going to get.
Well, Whit Watson again with us talking some golf after Rory McIlroy becomes the 4th player to win consecutive Masters over the weekend, joining Faldo, Nicklaus, and Tiger Woods. And a quick Google search, Whit, by the way, of Rory McIlroy will include the words unfair advantage along with it. A lot of people on social media over the weekend, and I think you and I are going to have the same take, but I want to bring this up just to get your thoughts on it. A lot of folks that are accusing Rory of, hey, you blew off, a bunch of tournaments up until the Masters, and you dropped off Poppy at school in Florida, jumped on a jet, scooted your ass up to Augusta, and played a bunch of practice rounds at the Masters, and then you go out and win the damn thing. So for people that complain about Rory having an unfair advantage, what do you say to them?
Any player who's in the field at the Masters is allowed to come play a practice round before the Masters. I think there's a cap on the number that you can play. Don't quote me on that. In terms of him having a private jet to go there and back, if you don't like the fact that he has a private jet, play better. That's my answer to that.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah, right. And now maybe if we go back to the 60s and 70s when Nicklaus was battling Gary Player and Watson and all, maybe there was a time then where these guys didn't have access to private jets, but it's been a long time that the best money winners have had this type of access. Maybe they don't own their own plane, but they have the service, net jets or whatever. So this isn't something, Rory McIlroy's opportunity. This is not new. Certainly Tiger and people before Tiger had the same opportunity.
Yeah, well, yeah, the private jet thing is kind of not the point. The point is that anybody who's already qualified for the Masters, any former champion, anybody who was in the top 50 by a certain date, the guys that were in the top whatever at the U.S. Open, anybody who knew that he was playing in the 2026 Masters, Augusta National allows them to come play practice rounds. How you get there is immaterial.
Right.
But Rory going up there to play and deciding not to play in Texas, he's an independent contractor. He can play whenever and wherever he wants.
Right.
So that whole thing about, the unfair advantage, there was a segment on ESPN, I guess, with Stephen A. and Brian Windhorst. And by the way, tell me you never cover golf without telling me you never cover golf. That kind of blew this up into a thing. It's not a thing. Anybody who's in the tournament can go play a practice round. How you get there is up to you.
Well,
So
I agree with
you.
you.
Really wasn't a story. Yeah.
Whit Watson with this. Whit, I agree with your take. Okay, so I think the three of us are all but just to give weight to the argument, I think the argument would be something like, because Rory is so affluent, he can
skip other tournaments.
He can skip the other tournaments.
Right.
He can even take his daughter to school, pop up there, play around, come back. Like it's not disruptive to his life. So the rich get richer is the argument, and the mainstream golfers in most of the field don't have access to those type of privileges. I think that would be the argument.
And the counter argument is, when you play the events that you do qualify to play for, if you shoot lower scores each of those 4 days, you'll make more money too, and then you can afford your own plane.
Right.
The answer to everything in golf is play better.
Play better. Correct. I'm trying, and I'm failing miserably, by the way. Okay, so I'm not even trying to make the Masters, by the way. I'm just trying to make day 2 of the clown show tournament we have at our local club. Hey, Whit, the maybe biggest story for a lot of people that's coming out of the weekend isn't Rory's title, it's the way CBS covered it. The second shot on 18, had no idea where the ball ended up for a good, felt like 10, 15 seconds. The final shot of him standing on the 18 green, CBS decides to go with a camera behind Rory. Can't see his face when the ball goes in, can't see the ball go into the cup to win the Masters. Other complaints about Haotong Li and his adventure over the weekend. What did you make of the criticism that CBS got from the weekend, man?
I got to do a quick preface for full transparency, because you guys asked me if this was okay to talk about.
Right.
When I was calling live golf for Golf Channel, if CBS had the Saturday-Sunday coverage, Sellers Shy and all of the CBS crew were in the truck on Thursday and Friday when I was on the air. So I've known those guys forever.
Got it.
And I consider Sellers to be a friend. That being said, they didn't have a great week. And I wasn't in the truck. I don't know what happened. I do know that if you go to Masters.com right now and click on the leaderboard and click on Rory's name and Cam Young's name and click on the 18th hole on their scorecards, you can see video of every one of their shots on the 18th hole, minus Cam Young's second shot, which apparently no camera could catch.
Wow.
In Rory's case, they had a clear shot of his second shot at 18. They used a handheld camera looking back from the 18th green, but those camera angles were not the ones that CBS used. Those camera angles that I'm describing were part of the every player, every shot feature on Masters.com. And I don't even know if CBS had access to those in their truck. You are correct. CBS couldn't find the ball off the tee for Rory. They couldn't find his second shot. They couldn't find Cam Young's second shot when he drove it left of the fairway bunker and then left of the green with the second. These are people that I like, and I consider them colleagues. They had a bad weekend, and I don't know what happened in the truck. I don't know if the cameras were out of position. I think that some of the criticism is fair. I also know that we don't know if they had bugs, if they had glitches, if they lost cameras.
Right.
And I also will tell you that there's no golf tournament in the world where the tournament organizers have more influence over the broadcast than the Masters. They are monitoring every second of the broadcast If there's anything that they wish to be done differently, they are in the truck in a heartbeat.
Yeah. You have a story about that, by the way? Is there an anecdote? Like, can you take, I mean, you were there 10 times, man. You know, I've never been there. Hugh, you've been there once as a patron. Is there any, I mean, if you don't feel comfortable with, that's fine. But is there an example of, because I think we've all known forever that Augusta National, every little detail they're aware of, right? They're involved in everything. Yeah. I mean, hell, Mark Calcavecchia gets tossed out of the tournament for having his phone over the weekend, for God's sakes, right? So can you give us an example of how involved they are?
Sure. I've never been on the television broadcast because my 10 years there were with Westwood One Radio as a radio broadcaster. But I will tell you an example of controlling the narrative. The very first year of the drive, chip, and putt competition was the year after Tiger Woods was the beneficiary of a rather controversial ruling. Okay. He got a very beneficial drop in the year prior. And the chairman at the time wasn't Fred Ridley. I think it was Billy Payne. And I might be getting the years wrong. But anyway, I was in the media center and I was working for Golf Channel, not Westwood One. And one of the producers at Golf Channel pulled me aside and said, hey, one of the members who's on the media committee is looking for Steve Sands. We can't find Steve. He wants to talk to somebody at Golf Channel. Can you step out with us for a second? I said, sure. We went outside the media center, and this member who was on the media committee said, look, we know that we're going to get asked a whole lot of questions. The first question is going to be about this drop, this controversial ruling. We really want to talk about drive, chip, and putt, which happened, on Sunday. It was the first year of drive, chip, and putt. If we let you be the first question, and if you ask about drive, chip, and putt, I promise we'll come back to you later in the press conference, and you can ask whatever you want.
Wow.
And I was like, sure, I'll do that.
Okay.
So Billy Payne gives his State of the Masters address and yada, yada, yada. And now we'll take questions. And the media and the Augusta member, whose name I can't remember, makes a big show of looking around the room and goes, okay, yes, you, Whit. I said, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, would you just please talk about what an incredible experience it was out here on Saturday morning, watching all these youngsters out here with the experience of their lifetime in the finals of the drive, chip, and putt, and what a great initiative this is at Augusta National and this contribution they've made to the game of golf. And he went off for 10 minutes.
Wow.
About drive, chip, which is a great event, by the way. About what a great event drive, chip, and putt was, and then did come back to me later. And the funny part was I got back to the TV compound at the end of that press conference on Wednesday morning, and Molly Solomon, who was the executive in charge of production for Golf Channel at the time, she ran over to me, and she goes, was that you with the first question? I said, yep. She goes, was that a plant? I said, yep.
Whit Watson, my last question.
There's no way in hell that Whit Watson was getting the first question. Right. They don't know who you are.
Well, you're going to get the last question here from me anyways. And let's just stick with the broadcast because this is going to be very subjective, my opinion, but curious if there's, more importantly, people in important places that might agree with me. When I listen to Jim Nantz, I mean, he's absolutely iconic, obviously Hall of Famer. No announcer has ever done a sport better than Jim Nantz does golf. That's very, personal opinion. But Trevor Immelman, I love the accent and all, but I just feel like it's thin. The analysis is thin. When they had Faldo, it was just so deep and compelling, and I just can't believe the golf world doesn't have an analyst that has more insight and compelling analysis than what we're getting. Am I on my own island there, or how does the rest of the golf broadcast world feel about that thought?
Again, he's a friend of mine.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Puts you in a tough position.
No, everybody's got an opinion. The hard thing about this is that you're trying to find an ex-player, preferably a major winner who's got some gravitas. It turns out this job is hard. It's not automatic that you find a major champion who's really good on TV. A lot of people thought Paul Azinger was a good analyst. A lot of folks thought he was a terrible analyst. A lot of folks thought Curtis Strange was great. A lot of folks thought he wasn't. There's no home run. There's no, is Troy Aikman universally thought as great?
Good point.
I don't know. There's no consensus on what makes a great analyst.
Yeah.
I think it turns out that TV is hard, especially in that seat. I sat next to Lanny Wadkins for about 7 years doing PGA Tour Champions broadcasts. He's a very direct speaker. If you're of the Johnny Miller mind, where you want to say when a player is choking, he's choking, then you'd love Lanny Wadkins as an analyst. Trevor is a very gentle person by nature, so he's not going to be the kind of guy that said, "Wow, he just shoved that right," Whereas Johnny's a little sharp and he's going to say choked.
Yep.
I think it's just a matter of opinion. There's nothing that you can't quantitatively decide what's a good analyst or a bad analyst. I happen to think that Brandel Chambly is a great analyst whose playing record is, he won an event that no longer exists, right? And he gets a lot of crap from tour players because his playing record isn't great.
Yeah.
But everything he says is well researched. He does his homework. It's just this is not an X's and O's thing. It's entirely subjective.
Well, Whit, before you go, I got to sneak this in. I'm going to mention your website again. WhitWatson.com is the website. Just great golf coverage, man. One of the best, and we always appreciate you being on. But we would be remiss if we did not just get a quick thought from you, 30 seconds or less if you want, man, on Tiger's situation, right? A guy that was considering maybe playing this last weekend. There's some thought maybe the Senior U.S. Open. We've been hopeful out here in Seattle that maybe because of Tiger's relationship with Freddie Couples, that maybe one day he'd swing through the Boeing Classic at Snoqualmie and do his old buddy Freddie a favor. Well, now he's overseas getting treatment for presumably drug addiction. What's your take on the current situation with Tiger?
My hope is that there is someone in his life that he still listens to and trusts who will help him get his act together. And that's it. The playing stuff is secondary. I'd love to see him swing a club again. I hope that he still has someone in his life that he listens to and believes in and trusts, who's not on the gravy train, who will be there when he decides to get it together.
Yeah, no doubt. Whit Watson, awesome stuff. You're the best, man. We'll talk soon, buddy. Appreciate this.
Always a pleasure. Cheers, guys.
You got it.
Okay,
Whit
thanks,
Watson with us on the radio show. You can find his stuff at Real Whit Watson on Twitter, whitwatson.com on the web. All right, the Mariners have done it. They have swept the Houston Astros. They are now 9-1 in their last 10 games, going back to last year against the Astros. That's going to make for a happy Dan Wilson. I hope. We're going to hear from the skipper next on 93.3 KJR FM. 28 years together, buddy, of the Mahler Millen mock draft. Who would have thought it would last this long? Who would have thought we'd want to hang out with each other for that long?
20, says we do.
Well, yeah, likewise, pal. 28 years. We're doing it again next Wednesday from Dino's in Renton. The mock draft is like... It's like the U.S. Open, right? It just travels around from great venue to great venue to great venue.
That's a good way to put it.
But you've got a couple of spots, Whistling Straits, for example, Pinehurst, where every now and then you're going to end up there every 4 or 5 years or 3 of every 10, 11 years, right? So Dino's is one of those spots. It's a regular stop on the Mahler Millen Mock Draft Tour, and we'll be there next Wednesday at 3 o'clock. Grand prize win, by the way, gets $1,000 to Delta Airlines. We got Twin Peaks gift cards, Taco Time gift cards, baseball tickets, the whole spiel. You want to sign up and be there and represent a team and make a selection in the mock draft? You think you know what the hell you're talking about? Then prove it, baby. Go to the Softy and Dick page right now on the website, 93.3 KJR.com, and sign up to be a part of the Mahler Millen mock draft next Wednesday at Dino's Pub in Renton. All right, Bill Krueger, Hugh, will join us in about 25 minutes from now, talk some baseball with Billy after the Mariners sweep the Astros, and that made for, I hope, a very happy Dan Wilson today.
Yeah, real good way to end that series today. Guys just continuing offensively to do the things, and to see Nails break out today in a huge way really was tremendous. I thought getting that 3 runs in the first inning was a huge statement for us, and really gave George the ability to go out and just continue to settle in, and boy did he settle in. Just again, his mixture of pitches, his attacking the zone, getting in good counts. They're an aggressive team with the bat, and he was able to take advantage of that, and it was just a great outing for him, and then for Matty Brash to put out the fire there in the 8th, and Wilcox to get the 9th. A great job on the mound again today, but offensively really, hits up and down the lineup. Not as many walks today. I think we only had 1 walk perhaps, but guys making contact, putting the ball in play, using the other field. It's a good balanced attack all around, and a good one to take away. A good homestand, and now back on the road, and continue this momentum as we get into San Diego.
We've talked about the heart and lineup of this series. Cowper's home run. Josh gets 2 today. How good was it to see just all of them finally get that?
Yeah, I think we talk a lot. In terms of our offense and being a lineup against the pitcher, and when you got all cylinders firing, that's the best. But it's a baseball season, so you're not going to have all cylinders at all times. And but to see these guys, get to where they want to be, I think that the swings are getting so much better, that they're getting in better counts. Just the contact they're making, the quality of contact has been so much better. These guys are in a really good spot, and I think that's where we want to be as this year starts to roll on, and it could be any one of our guys 1 through 9 that could strike and be the hero in the ball game. So that's what we're looking for, and it's really good to see everybody in that spot.
What about that in particular, seeing 4 times in a row one that's dominated the division for as long as they've been?
Yeah, we had a crucial 3-game series with them last year late that went our way. That's a good team, and I think you can't underestimate them offensively. They've got a lot of great bats in that lineup. They're a little banged up, and I think it's important when teams are banged up that you got to take advantage of that. And so I think, again, kudos to our guys for being able to do that. I think the next time we see Houston, they're going to be a different team because they're going to, be in a different position in terms of injuries and whatnot. So, again, it's about playing our consistent brand day after day, and that's what we got to get back to, which this series we were able to do that.
So I realized the Astros are banged up a little bit. I went on Twitter, Hugh, after this series and just asked a really simple question. Are the Astros terrible? Because they might be, right? They might just have so many injuries throughout the year, and they're not going to be what they were a couple, 2-3 years ago. They're not going to be this bad. They're not on pace to win 35% of their games, for God's sakes. But somebody wrote back and said, Safdie's just trying to spoil the sweep, which I'm like, why would I want to do that? Well, if you're not trying to spoil the sweep, then you say the Astros are good. I don't want the Astros to be good. Don't you understand that? I want the Astros to stink. It's one less team to worry about. I hope the Astros are horrible. What the hell?
Well, tell me a dynasty that never, at some point ran its course.
Of course.
Right? Whether it's the Roman Empire or whether it's the New York Yankees or the Green Bay Packers,
That's
Dallas Cowboys.
That's right.
Everybody who was thought to be at the peak, eventually their day is done.
Right.
And, we can remember that Sports Illustrated cover. I don't know who wrote it, but about 2-3 years in advance of the Astros hitting their sweet spot, they said the future stars of baseball, it's a paraphrase. I know I got the headline wrong, but it's words to that effect. And somebody had done a really good job of laying out how they structured their entire program and their franchise. And then it was exactly what Sports Illustrated predicted 2-3 years in advance of all that. But
right.
They've had a long damn run on at or near the top of this division, and you just say, hey, history says that every run is going to be done.
Right. It was Ben Reeder, by the way, who wrote the article, and it was in 2014 when he wrote for Sports Illustrated an article that proclaimed that the Houston Astros 3 years later would win the World Series in 2017, and they won the World Series in 2017.
Yeah, and
it was actually incredible.
Well, look at the 5 years. Look at the Astros history 5 years before.
They were 70. They were 70 and 92 the year that he wrote the article. That season, they had lost 324 games in 3 years between 2011 and 2013. But this guy saw what the Astros were doing with their minor league system, and he projected them 3 years later to win the World Series, and they won the World Series and went 101 and 61. So can somebody at SI write the Mariners are going to win the World Series this year, for God's sakes, please?
Yeah. The headline, by the way, this was the cover of Sports Illustrated, so the editors thought it worthy of that, and it says, your 2017 World Series champs.
That's right.
That would be like putting the Cal Bears on the cover of Sports Illustrated.
Ooh, no. Right? Nope. It'd be like Indiana 3 years ago.
Good point. I'm sitting in there going hypothetical, and you're bringing up you saw my submittal and you trumped me. Yes, it would be like Indiana 3 years ago.
Unbelievable.
Well, good retort. Yes, it would have been exactly like that. But or Cal this spring.
Correct. Well,
you'd say, huh?
Look, the Astros made the playoffs 8 years in a row from 2017 to 2024 and then missed it last year. And they're on pace to win 57 games, which I'd be shocked if that happens, obviously. But I also don't know if I'm ready yet to proclaim that Houston is still one of the teams to beat in the American League or even this division, man. We're going to break testimonials, and then Bill Krueger will join. Give us his thoughts on the sweep by the M's at 5 on 93.3 KJR FM. Plays for Kansas City, and he's a really, really good player.
Yep.
He's been on base, I think the number is 29 times. You know how many runs he's scored, by the way?
Probably not very many.
1. He's been on base 29 times, and they have brought him home 1 time this year.
Horrible.
Okay, so we always thought the schedule would lighten up a little bit at the end of April. So I'm going to disagree with a texter, Hugh, and say the M's are going to keep it going. Maybe not winning every 4 games they play, but they'll keep it going.
I think it's too early to tell. I think that we're just kind of seeing, the boat's rocking, and then at some point it'll just start settling, and we'll get a picture of how good they are on offense.
That doesn't work for talk radio, though, man. Come on. Have an opinion. What the hell we pay you for?
Well, I would say based on how the middle of the lineup they hit today, all 3 of them had 2 hits. How about that?
Yeah, great analysis, man. I love it. All right, what's next?
The Astros are going to be sellers at the trade deadline.
Ooh.
They are cooked and finally buried back in the ground like 15 years ago.
Well, you know what? Look, I mean, the point you made last segment, Huey, every dynasty comes to an end. The Astros made the playoffs 8 times in a row, missed the playoffs a year ago. Would not be stunned if they missed it again this year. And I got to tell you, man, if they're selling at the deadline, if there's a way to get Yordan Alvarez, the devil himself, away from the Astros so the M's don't have to face that guy anymore, sign me up. Can you imagine that dude DHing for the Mariners down the stretch while Cal Raleigh's playing catcher every single day? Oh, my God.
No, and I thought just because they are, always so successful, they're in the postseason, I thought Alvarez had to have been in his 30s, but he's only 28.
Yes. He's got 3 years left on his deal, by the way.
Altuve is going to be 36 in May.
Yeah.
So there's some age in that lineup, but Bregman moved on. I mean, Pena's young. I mean, they've done a decent job of bringing in young guys. It's just their arms are hurt right now. So, I don't know who the Astros are, but I don't think they're as bad as what we saw this week.
Well,
nobody's arms are that bad.
They lost every single game. I mean, they're not going to go 0-162.
Well, I'm talking about the walks and the hits.
Yeah, I get it.
What'd you say the ERA for
13.1?
Yes. 13. Okay, they're not going to be that bad.
They gave up 11 walks, and they struck out 8 batters in this series against the Mariners.
The Astros at the end of the year will not have a 13 ERA.
And I'll bet that they won't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, then nobody's going to bet. That's the point.
I thought you would take the other side just for giggles. All right, we're going to break. Bill Krueger going to join us next on 93.3 KJR FM. Hi, boys and girls. It's Santi back here again from my friends over at Burien Toyota. I'll tell you what, man, gas prices, let's face it, they pretty much suck right now, man. Here's the deal, though. Looking to get into a hybrid like me, a RAV4 hybrid that can give you well over 300 miles a tank. I want you to jump on the web and check out some of the zero financing possibilities on not just RAV4s, but other certified and brand new hybrids as well at Burien Toyota. Fight back and save money at the pump with a hybrid, either certified or brand new at Burien Toyota. Something for everybody and every budget. Check them out, BurienToyota.com.
This is Duke of Duke Seafood, letting you know that this hour of Softy and Dick on your home for the Huskies and Kraken is proudly brought to you by Duke Seafood. Why not make it a Duke's night tonight? Reserve your table today at dukeseafood.com on Sports Radio 93.3 KJR FM.
Now, from the Star Reynolds Sports Desk, your 93.3 KJR FM Sports Headlines.
All righty, boys and girls. Happy Monday. Headlines on Softy Dick with Jackson. Hugh Milton for Dick this afternoon. Brought to you by our friends at Frostbrewed Coors Light Choose Chill, baby.
We represent the Lollipop Guild.
Mariners get the sweep against the Astros today. Did you play that because Altuve just walked out of T-Mobile Park? You're a mean, mean man. Mariners sweep the Astros 4 games in a row. Josh Naylor today, not 1, but 2 bombs, 5 RBIs, his first 2 home runs of the year. The M's have crawled back to 8-9 and now sit a game and a half out of Minnesota for the best record in the American League. Take off for San Diego this week for 3 at Petco before they come back home to face the Rangers over the weekend. NHL, the Kraken, one more home game tonight, and then it's done. Kraken hosts the LA Kings, pregame 6 o'clock. Face off at 6:30. The boys were eliminated from playoff contention over the weekend. They do have 2 more road games at Vegas Wednesday, and then Thursday wrapping up the year at Colorado. What else in the NHL? Veteran goaltender Jonathan Quick getting 1 more start tonight at the age of 40 years old for the New York Rangers at Florida, and then he is calling it quits right now in the finale for him. Panthers lead the Rangers 2-1 early second period. And some sad news in baseball. Phil Garner, former 3-time All-Star infielder who led the Astros as a manager to their very first World Series, has passed away at the age of 76. Let's get to Bill Krueger right now.
It's time for our weekly conversation with Bill Krueger, brought to you by the brand new Occidental Hall next to Lumen Field on Occidental, Seattle's newest hotspot for sports fans, with massive HD screens and a menu packed with Seattle's best smash burger, wings, and the best local craft beers in town. Now with Bill Krueger, here's Softy and Dick.
Slug, center field, back, he's got another one! Josh Naylor has homered on back-to-back pitches.
All right, there you go. Big thanks to Mariners TV, MLB Baseball, by the way, for providing that clip. Aaron Goldsmith, great call. Josh Naylor, not 1, but 2 bombs and 5 ribbies against the Astros today. The M's now 9-1 in their last 10 games against Houston. But more importantly, Bill Krueger, undefeated and averaging over 7 runs a game since the bat on Ichiro's statue broke on Friday afternoon at the unveiling. This is not a coincidence, Bill, and you know it. How are you?
I'm good. Is this sort of like the Billy Goat of Chicago, or
I
don't know.
In reverse.
Is the lore going to grow as they become unbeatable at home now after that has transpired? But it was a matter of time for this team to start to hit a little bit, just with a pulse, right?
Yeah.
And of course they just brought the Astros pitching staff to its knees. It's been a struggling group with all the injury and really not nearly the talented group that they've been in the past. Granted, Hunter Brown and Hader aren't there, right, and those are 2 great pitchers for them, and the depth. So they're going to get better, and the Mariners preyed upon them and just no contest. They couldn't throw strikes. They couldn't get the game started.
Yep.
The Samayi guy they got from Japan, they say he's got arm fatigue. I think it's like they're going to sit him down and hope he kind of finds it again, because what we saw was not very impressive for a guy they've invested a lot of money in. So I'm digressing. The team put up 30 runs. You're right. We saw some bats come alive. Of course, Naylor's today with the 2 home runs. The second one was no doubt. And you had to know that was going to eventually happen. Didn't know if it was going to happen with the home run, but it did, which is terrific. And Rodriguez was good the whole series. So, and a number of guys in the lineup hit well throughout this 4-game stretch. And the Mariners scored early. They drew a ton of walks, and 24 or 5 walks in the series. That's terrific.
Well, what's the best explanation? And I think, look, maybe it is the Astros pitching, and that's not necessarily raining on anybody's parade. If that's the cause of this known phenomenon, the phenomenon is this emergence, in this little brief window, one series, the offense came alive. But if you had to say, from the Mariner perspective, what do you think is the cause of it? Is it an approach? Is it a mindset? What did you see in that regard that caused all this?
Well, the Astros pitching just couldn't get out of the chute, and the Mariners had them up against the wall early because of all the walks. Maie was just completely all over the place to start the first game, and the Mariners put a 3-spot on him and chased him. And then what happens is your bullpen gets overexposed, and then you see guys that are being stretched into positions they're not supposed to be in. You get revolving door of guys coming from the minor leagues. It just piles upon itself, and they just couldn't find a starter. Really, the guy that pitched the last game, Burrow, the guy they picked up from Pittsburgh. I mean, that's a good performance. 6 innings of 11 hit, six-run baseball. That was what they were looking for, right?
Right.
Look, this is a proud Houston team. They've been great for a decade. They've been a dominant team. They've got a good offense. They're banged up. Their pitching is not where it should be. So, it's a chance for the Mariners to get some retribution because this team kind of took us behind the woodshed for a number of years, and now the worm has turned, and the Mariners are taking it to the Astros, which is terrific because we know they're garbage can bangers. They get what they deserve.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm with you. What comes around goes around. Those cheating bastards can taste it now for a while. But Bill Krueger is with us on the air, and just getting some numbers on the walks here. I want to talk to you about those in just a minute. But I want to go back to Friday night, man. Emerson Hancock, 5 innings, 3 runs, couple of walks, and 5 Ks. And, on the surface doesn't look like much, but when you put it into context, Billy, of, hey, this guy's basically your number 6 starter. Every start he's made since April of last year has been because somebody else has been banged up. But I looked at it last year, 16 starts, 12 of the 16, he goes 5 or more. 12 of the 16, he allows 3 or less. And I'm thinking to myself, that's not too damn shabby for a number 6 starter in anybody's organization.
It's a great guy to have in your back pocket. And what's happened here is this is the guy's number 6 pick in the draft. He expected to be a front-end starter in his career.
Yep.
And now he's a guy that's trying to hang on. But I think he dug deeper this offseason and toward the end of last year and said, what is it that I'm missing here? And I think he's starting to understand how he can be successful. He's got something that he's got a breaking ball that's got some break to it, and it's got a speed change attached to it. I don't know if it's like classic breaking ball, but in today's world, the sweeper is sort of a fashion pitch, a trendy pitch, and it's got something that's going east to west that he's throwing 78 to 81 miles an hour, and that's giving him some contrast.
Mm-hmm.
It's giving him something for the right-hand hitter that doesn't like to stick his nose in, because he's got 95, 96 miles an hour they can run up in the strike zone. So he's a strike thrower. He's got an off-speed pitch now. He got a better idea what he wants to do. And you're right. The time that he's been kind of in and out of the rotation, it was like you pile up some good starts, 5, 6 innings of 2-run or less baseball, and then you stub your toe a couple times, then you're in AAA. Or you roll along, and then Logan Evans comes up and throws a 7 or 8 inning shutout, and suddenly he's the gal you really want to dance with, right? And now throw him to the side, throw Emerson to the side. So he's had, I think, the short end of the stick. He hasn't been a dominant pitcher, but in the number 5 spot, wow, that's really good when you look at the other 4 the club has, and the fact that Bryce Miller's going to come back, and he's a pretty talented guy.
Well, Bill Krueger with us. Billy, let's just take a snapshot of the rest of the staff. Your take on the other starters, the bullpen, just kind of a state of the staff from Bill Krueger, if you can.
Well, you saw Gilbert and Kirby put back-to-back starts up that show you what they're all about. Dominant 7, 8 inning performances. Gilbert put 2 in a row up, and so is Kirby. They've done this before. Last year they were hurt. Kirby didn't start the season right away. Gilbert got hurt. They missed 6 weeks, 2 months in there, and they were never the complete story that they'd been in the previous year or two.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're healthy, and they want to be in the All-Star game. They want to be dominant guys, and they can be that. So you see, and then Brian Wu is arguably the best right-hander in the American League. And it's not a flash in the pan. He's done it since his first couple of starts in the big leagues. If you look at his numbers, they're eye-popping. And then what he did last year as a starter, and yet, the undertone is always they worry about him because he's a great athlete. He's strong because he has to be, because he kind of defies, the physics of pitching, because he's getting underneath the ball and up shooting the ball, and he kind of leads with his elbow, and he's had 2 Tommy Johns. I mean, the best pitcher in the game the best pitcher you got, and one of the best in the American League, is not your number one starter to start the season. Is that because Gilbert's the better pitcher? No.
Mm-hmm.
It's because they're trying to protect him. They skipped him after his first turn for a day. They're really trying to coddle him along. And I'm not picking on Brian Wu, because he wants the ball and he wants to throw 200 innings. It's the Mariners that are kind of pulling the reins back on him a little bit, because they'd like to make sure that he gets there, right?
Right.
That's what you're going to see from them. They're going to kind of pull him back a little bit, watch his pitch count, don't get him too much on turn, because of the fact that they are worried about his health. Because one more bad mishap on the elbow, and that's, I don't know how many guys have come back from 3 Tommy John. And I'm not saying he's going to have one, but he's a dominant stitcher. So the Mariners starting pitching. Now, we haven't talked about Castillo, and yes, he hasn't been very good. His last turn, he got hit around, turn against the Angels. But here's a guy that can have slow starts. But yet, after 3 years of watching him do what? 30 starts, 180 innings. 30 starts, 180 innings, a 3.5 ERA.
Yep.
Boom, boom, boom. And even though his velocity has come back a little bit, he can still pitch. He pitches with extreme confidence. Again, a guy that kind of upshoots the baseball, and he's going to have his big days when he can get to the top line and beat you. Because if he doesn't beat you up there, then he's kind of flat to the baseball. He's not a tall guy.
Right.
He throws a little bit from that lower angle. But in the big stall strike zone today, if you've got the extra giddy up and you can upshoot it, it can be a very effective pitch. What does he need to do? He needs to have a little bit more effectiveness against lefties. He's got to figure out. He's got to commit more to either slow or breaking ball, but I don't think he's going to do that because he's already throwing kind of a slower slider, and it's not a matter of him trying to slow his breaking ball down. I think it's the changeup, and he had a great one in Cincinnati. He should go back and look at the tape and think about the grip that he was using and try to get back to turning that thing over a little bit more and getting a little bit more downward action and a little more kill.
Yeah.
So that he doesn't have to be throwing it a little too hard. But we're nitpicking. This guy is just confident and cool customer. He's going to pitch great. As far as the rest of the staff is concerned, we've seen Ferrer pitch a little bit better the last couple times. He's starting to feel a little bit – he's getting a little more comfortable, being on a new team. It's the first time he's changed teams and trying to prove himself. But we saw heavy fastball, 97, 98. He threw in the throwaway inning. He threw yesterday. He threw a couple of sliders, which is good. He needs to do that to get lefties out. Brash is fine. Munoz has been a little scattery, but he's a little scattery anyway.
Yep.
He does the thing about Munoz is he's really hard to hit. He's got great stuff. And the other thing is the one thing that happened to him this year, he gave up a homer. But if you look at his numbers, he doesn't give up homers.
Right.
One of the big keys for a closer is either you love it if it's no homers, no walks. Well, he's got a little bit of walk in his game, but he's got no homer. You just don't homer off of him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, you can talk about the rest of the guys in the bullpen. They've found some people like, Amina's pitched pretty good, and Wilcox looks like a good find, and their pitching's really, really good.
Bill, let me ask you about Colt Emerson. Bill Krueger's with us, courtesy of the Queen Anne Beer Hall. Before and after every Mariner game, check out the Occidental Hall. If before and after every Kraken game. Check out the Queen Anne Beer Hall. You're in the Kirkland area. It's the Moss Bay Hall. I mean, why not keep going? Next time you're at a Cougar football game, check out the Pullman Hall. What the hell? Bill, I want to play a clip for you here. Jerry DiPoto was on the MLB Network today, and he had this to say about the timeline for Colt Emerson to maybe soon one day get called up. Check this out.
How far away is this kid?
No, he's as close as they come. It's part, and it's why we did what we did with the contract was, Colt is trending toward a 20-year-old debut. He doesn't turn 21 until July. Generally speaking, young players who get to the big leagues that soon, who are as well, I guess, rounded and polished as Colt is, tend to play long careers. And our goal here was to make sure that we had a marriage with Colt set up through what should be some of the most productive years of his career. And, I said it to him, and I didn't say it jokingly. If we do this right, we'll sit down and do 3 contracts, and it'll be a lifetime Mariner.
All right, so he made a point to say he thinks he's going to get called up before he turns 21. And that's in 3 months from now, on the 20th of July, which happens to be 11 days before the baseball trade deadline. I'm looking at Colt Emerson's numbers, obviously, in AAA Tacoma. He's hitting .265. He's got a .730 OPS, home run, 5 ribbies in 13 games. Defense is obviously phenomenal, at least for AAA baseball. We'll see what happens when he gets up here, but you'd think that would travel easier than offense than hitting. You tell us, man. What do you think about the Colt Emerson train and when it stops in Seattle?
Well, this guy's a real ball player. This is a real jewel coming up through the system, and you can hear it in Jerry's voice. They're very proud of Colt Emerson and what he's going to be. They paid him big. They got him locked up for 9 years. He lives, drinks, eats, sleeps baseball. He is a ball player, okay? And he's talented. He's strong. He's going to hit. He's of course straight left-handed, and he can really play the left side of the infield. He is the heir apparent at shortstop. And what will happen? It's a great question. Outside of injury, you never want to root for injury. And watching Brendan Donovan survive at third, I think he's going to play third. The question then becomes is when the music starts,
right? And
you start to play the organ, and they start to dance around the chairs. Who doesn't have a chair? That's the question, right? Is it he goes to left and Randy DHs it, and then who's the DH? And then Canzone goes to AAA, but we like him, and then on the music goes. And how does it affect people's attitudes, right? I mean, because he's not going to come in and just supplant Crawford.
Yeah.
I mean, look what Crawford did this series. They let him lead off, which is actually the best position for him to play. But in modern baseball, you got to be an all-star to hit first. You can't be an on-base guy. His first 2 games, he is up 10 times. He was on 7. He was a big reason why they got that whole thing going with being patient. He's a very good leadoff hitter for me. And I'm not saying Donovan can't lead off. In today's game, Donovan does lead off. In the game I played, Crawford led off, okay? But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about today's game and where the minds think that you're better, which is RBIs are random. Give the best hitters the most at-bats. I think RBIs are not random, but what do I know, right? So I think Crawford is the shortstop, and until he can't play short, he's the shortstop, and he's a good player.
Right.
He's clutch, and he's patient. But he gets a little big when he hits down the order, and he throws the bats away. He just throws them away. But when you lead him off, he keyholes, and he fouls pitches off, and he's natty. But, he's not going to lead off. So quit talking about that. So Emerson's going to play third. And Donovan's going to play where? Left. Because you like Cole Young. He's a good player. You got to let him play. You don't want him feeling like, oh, my gosh, they're going to move Donovan in. What's going to happen to me? So there's your conversation. It's not so much like and Emerson comes up, he's going to play. He's going to play every day. And it's exciting. He's going to be a really good player. This guy is a bona fide guy coming from the minor leagues.
No doubt. No doubt.
Bill Krueger with us. And Bill, I thought Jerry DiPoto used interesting wording when he said that Colt was in his 20th year. It's like John Denver talking about a guy being born in his 27th year. But at any rate, Cade Anderson, he's in his 21st year. He'll be 22 in July. He's in AA Arkansas, of course. And do you think we're going to see him start a game for the Mariners this season?
I say no, but if he continues to pitch like he's pitching, and he's a polished kid. He's a 4-pitch pitcher with good stuff and cool customer. He can pitch in the big leagues. But you just want him to pitch as a pro. Pitch every 5 days, be a pro for a while, get used to pro baseball. He after the LSU season, he sat, came to spring training, a little bit, pitched a little bit. Now he's pitched, a couple games. He just wiped somebody out the last time out, 11 punch-outs, real efficient. But if you look at him, he's a lefty. He's not a gasoline blower. I mean, he's low to mid 90s, but he's got feel. He's got 4 pitches. He's got a really good delivery. And if you ask me about comps, because he's not real tall, he reminds me, and you would remember this guy, maybe you, Dave, but a guy by the name of Floyd Bannister that pitched for the Mariners back in the day. And he won 150 games in the big leagues. He was an all-star with Chicago. He didn't do much here because the team was so bad, right? But he's another guy who's 6'1", 6'2", but he threw it harder than you thought, and he had 2 different breaking balls. He reminds me a lot of Floyd Bannister. And he went 150 games. That's pretty good. It'd be a pretty good career for him. So you're asking me the question. I think they're going to have a couple injuries before they see him.
Right.
I'll tell you what, you'd get real nice when you get down to the end of the season and you're having to pile up the right-hand starter. Would it be great to have him if you got to the playoffs and have him as a left-handed starter?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because you're going to see some teams that got some left-handed hitting, and it'd be nice to be able to mix it up a little bit. You can't just, big bad wolf right-handers day after day after day. And Grant, Wu is so different that he kind of gives you that different look, right? But I don't think they're going to jump ahead with him unless something happens.
Well, Bill, I'm looking at Logan Gilbert. I'm looking at George Kirby. I'll look at Wu, and I'll look at Bryce Miller. But the idea of a guy making the jump from AA to the major leagues is not ridiculously unheard of. Logan, I think, made 1 start in AAA. Kirby made only the 6 starts in AAA. I'm looking at Brian Wu in AAA. I don't think he had 3 starts in AAA. Is it possible that he could make the jump right from Arkansas to the bigs?
That's what the great ones do. Just look up old Bill Krueger. He did pitch in AAA. He went from AA to the big leagues.
That's all you got to know. And then Cade Anderson.
They go straight from AA.
That's right, Billy. Cade Anderson's going to end up doing radio on KJR.
But no, I mean, he's good enough.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's just another step, just to take another step.
Right.
Because, you don't have a spot for him and you just want to not have him get bored. He's going to be really, really good, this lefty. I mean, he's going to be really good because he's polished. He's not a guy that's out there and he's going to have to try to outstuff people. He's going to have days where he's got a little extra juice and he's going to be able to blow people away, but he can pitch.
Right.
He can throw a breaking ball in a fastball count. He can throw a changeup in a fastball count. He can move the baseball around. Yeah, he's going to be really good.
God, that may have been rehab.
The Mariners these guys are really good, okay? And I haven't seen them a ton, but this is another level. This is where I can feel it with Jerry. He's finally saying, I've got the organization up to the place where we're getting real bona fide guys coming to the big leagues, not just guys, like bona fide guys that can stick around for a long time and be all-star caliber players.
Right. Right. Yeah. I don't know if Wu's time in Tacoma, that may have been on a rehab assignment. I'm not seeing him making any starts in AAA before he came up here. And I don't think Bryce Miller did either. So between Gilbert, Wu, and Miller, I think they made 1 AAA start combined and made the jump right from AA. So that's in Jerry's history to absolutely do something like that. So we'll see. All right, man. Hey, listen, great stuff. Enjoyed the conversation. We'll talk in a week.
Sounds great, you guys. Always fun to be on with you.
You
and
bet.
Fun
Thanks,
when the
Bill.
team wins,
All right.
isn't it?
All right,
No
buddy.
doubt. No doubt. Much more fun. We got to get back to doing the This Week in Baseball thing, by the way, when they win. Da, 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 da. Maybe we'll start that next week. Anyway, we're going to break our Bellevue Rare Coins golden moment from the weekend. Something that actually happened today and brings up a question. Do you want teammates on the same team dating each other? Next on 93.3 KJR FM. Coin's golden moment. The Dallas Wings drafting AZ Fudd #1 in the WNBA draft out of Connecticut. Would you like to know why that is the golden moment from the weekend? Hugh Millen.
Do you want me to tell the truth, or do you want me to just play along with the bit?
You can tell the truth
I'll
if you want.
I
I don't care. Whatever you want. First of all,
tell me why that was a golden moment.
My first thought is I'm hoping her nickname is Elmer, by the way. Azzy Fudd, please tell me it's Elmer. And then number two, she is the girlfriend of current Dallas Wings star Paige Beckers. You now have two teammates dating each other on the same basketball team. And so I asked Jackson off the air, could she have gone #1 even without the relationship to Paige Beckers? Was she worthy of the #1 pick in the draft?
Apparently she and the girl that the Storm took #3 were even odds to go #1.
All right, so this is not reaching, right? They're not doing this just because Beckers is dating this gal, which is fine. I mean, if it was like, hey, nobody's even heard of this player, and they just drafted her because she's dating Paige Beckers, could this be potentially problematic? That you've got two teammates that are now dating each other. And is it also possible, I'm being serious now, that it's less problematic in the WNBA than it would be, for example, in the NBA or Major League Baseball or the National Football League?
Well, first of all, it's the answer is so obvious it feels rhetorical. Yes, if you want me to be literal, yes, it could very well be very problematic.
Right.
Particularly when you're talking about a star player and a lesser, this could be definitely a problem.
Have you ever been in a team where two teammates were dating each other? Hugh Miller.
Not that I was aware of.
Gotcha. All right.
Not that I was aware of. But
yes.
Now, is it less problematic for the WNBA? That's an interesting. I'm going to like to hear a sociologist weigh in on that. I mean, certainly that could pass the sniff test,
right?
But then you're going to have to present reason whys, and maybe it's just more accepted and understood. But yeah, I would think that this could be very ripe for controversy.
I mean, it's interesting.
Not controversy, but just problems.
Well,
because if the relationship,
what if they have a bad night and this
the
spills
wheels
out onto the
wobble on
court?
a relationship?
Right.
How does that impact the team in practice in game? For sure.
Okay. Well, let me ask you a question. A question. When you were dating Elisa back in the day, or Crazy Billy from Texas, or whatever, or let's say you and Michelle,
which is a woman, by the way.
Right. Exactly. Okay. Fine. I want to make that clear because you and Michelle did not start dating until after you were done playing, correct? Is that right? No?
No, it was near the end of my career.
Okay, so let's say you're dating Michelle and you had a big fight the night before a game and you go to work the next day and she's in the huddle. Right? I mean, that's
what we're talking about.
That's exactly what we're talking about.
It's a rhetorical question.
I mean, there's a part of me
potentially a problem.
I'm like, how can they do this? They got two people dating each other.
When they draft it, they're out of their skulls.
Right.
Now they may have said clearly. They said, "Okay, the juice is worth the squeeze. It's fine. We'll deal with it." But it had to have been a discussion, or they're just being negligent.
I actually just was listen. I'm not the biggest WNBA fan, but I was just kind of reading up on it. Apparently, Fudd and Buchers were in a relationship together when they played together at UConn.
Correct.
So they've already gone through this.
Right.
And I have to look back to see how that UConn team did.
I think they won the national title, did they not, with the two of them together? I don't know that to be certain. I know I'm assuming they did pretty well, but this is now the WNBA. They're making money. There's going to be a lot of other outside sources, yada, yada, yada.
They went to the Final Four together.
I don't know. I mean, I would think, again, if we're being real here, that this is probably way more accepted.
Yeah.
I think you're right, Hugh, in the WNBA than it would be in the NBA or any other male-dominated sport, for example, NFL, NHL, baseball. So I don't think in the WNBA landscape this is going to be that big of a deal to start. But the concern comes in if they have a breakup, if they have relationship problems, if they're not getting along, if there's any kind of jealousy, for example, or some kind of argument or misunderstanding, it could potentially spill out onto the floor. And I don't know, man. I mean, there's a lot of conversations about the WNBA and women's basketball that have nothing to do with what's happening on the court. Everything Caitlin Clark has been through, the Gino Auriemma, Don Staley spat from the Final Four, and now things like this, all of it, I think, is good. It gets people talking about women's basketball, all of it.
Yeah. I mean, if that's good, then I would just look and say, if you think that that's not going to be a discussion point,
right?
Then you have overestimated humanity,
right?
That this is one of those inflection points on hopefully the advancement of society that we pause and we say, hey, what about that era back in 2026 where we had, for the first time that we knew that two professional teammates were dating each other. And you can reference UConn. Presumably the relationship wasn't as solid then, right? Or one would assume that it's stronger now, which means there could be more of a, fallout, hurt feelings, distractions, what have you. I mean, what if they get married, or engaged and break off engagements? There's all kinds of things that are very reasonable that may happen that could be problematic for the basketball team.
All right, you said earlier, before we let you go, because we're going to talk some hockey next segment, get Big Al Kinski on and kind of wrap up the regular season home schedule with the Kings coming up tonight at 6:30. We had a clip from Jeff Pearlman on Fun with Audio. Do we have time to play this real quick here? Let's just do it real quick because I want to get your thoughts, Hugh. But this is the clip that we're referencing right now from Fun with Audio, talking about the Diana Rossini, Mike Vrabel story. Go ahead.
I also think there's a huge double standard. Like if I were doing a story about Mike Vrabel, let's just say I was assigned a piece, and he's like, yeah, I'm just going to, why don't you hang out with me at the pool today? You can interview me then. And I'm like, great. I hang out with him for the day on the pool. And at one point he's like, oh, my back stiffens up. I'm going to go in the hot tub. You want to go in the hot tub? And I'll be like, yeah, I have a bad back. Sure. Like nobody would be like, reporter Jeff Pearlman has cozy relationship with Mike Vrabel. It is a woman thing. And it is unfair, but a reality for women reporters that they really have to be, it's unfair, but cautious when writing about, in particular, men. And like, it's just such a painful double standard.
So that's Jeff Pearlman, who is a American sports writer who's been around a long time. I think he did the Showtime series for HBO, which was awesome. Written a bunch of books, New York Times bestsellers, and we played that clip. I want to give you 1 minute here, okay, Huey? Because we got to get to a break, all right?
Okay.
How about 90 seconds? I'll give you 90 seconds. You said earlier you thought that was one of the most ridiculous takes you've ever heard. Why?
Yeah, I think it was an illogical leap at virtue signaling by him. First of all, and I'm going to try and say something that in a way that's not controversial. I am totally support gay men, gay women, gay rights. Nobody has ever been able to present to me any even remotely credible argument why a gay person should have any less rights than me. So, in fact, one of my friends, very good friends for a long time, he came, years, told me, hey, he's gay. I said, I don't care. I think you're a great dude. Then I still think you're a great dude. And by the way, if I said his name, about maybe 90% of the people listening would know that name. So, but having said that, when you have a married man in Vrabel and a married woman in Diana Rossini, the default is that they are straight. And if you say that the probability of Diana Rossini hooking up with Mike Vrabel, it is exponentially higher than this guy, based on what we know about them. So there's that point. And then the other point, he's talking about those photos were at the Ambiente Hotel in Sedona. And by the way, I misspoke on Friday. I said my honeymoon.
Right.
It was my 25th anniversary. I've only been married once. My wife has only been married once to me. So when I said honeymoon, I meant anniversary. But I've been in those things. Those photos were taken at the common pool and in the hot tub, which is a common area. But then there were subsequent photos where they were up on top of these shacks. They're very tastefully done. It's like $1,500 a night. Yeah. But they're just romantic, and they're up on top.
I get it.
And they're interlocking fingers. That is totally different scenario and setting at that hotel than what this guy is talking about, that around a bunch of people if they had gone into the hot tub. So I think there's a number of ways these are materially different.
Sure.
I could keep going, but nice try would be my response to what he said.
Here's the deal. So the Vrabel side of this, I think can agree, has not gotten as much attention as the Rossini side of this. Yeah. We're going to try to rectify
because
that.
of her job.
Okay, hang on. We're going to for whatever reason, we're going to try to rectify it tomorrow. Chris Price will join us from Boston and talk about what they're saying out there about the Mike Vrabel angle on this story. All right? Hey, listen, great stuff. We'll let you go.
Rock and roll.
We'll talk soon. All right. You with us in for Dick. We'll get a break. Come back and wrap it up. Big Al Kinski will join us from CPA before the Kings and Kraken at 6:30 on 93.3 KJR FM.
Welcome to Kraken Game Day, where you could win a Hawaii getaway for two to Maui with luxury stay at the Wailea Beach Resort by donating blood with Bloodworks Northwest. For more info and to sign up now, log on to bloodworksnw.org/win. Now it's Kraken Game Day with Softy and Dick.
Hey, lots of people to thank, by the way, for all of our Kraken coverage this year, coming to an end for this season this week. 3 more games left to go, including tonight's game with the Kings. Pregame 6, face-off 6:30. Big thanks to our buddies at the Evergreen Council on Problem Gambling. Gambling should be fun, not stressful. Know the real score about gambling. Visit keepitfunwa.org. Keep it fun, sports fans. If you bet responsibly. You need help, check out keepitfunwa.org. Well, joining us right now on the radio program, our friend from the Kraken broadcast crew, 1/3 of the award-winning crew from the Kraken Audio Network, Big Al Kinski with us. Al, how are you, man?
Fantastic. How are you, Softy?
I'm good. So let's talk about kind of how we got here, man. I mean, before the Olympic break, the boys are 27-20-9. They were 5-1 their last 6 before the break. They take a couple of weeks off and just never were able to recreate the magic, man. 7-14-2 since then. What happened and how did we end up here where the boys are missing the playoffs yet again, man?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of things. Starting with the special teams have gone backwards from that point in time. The penalty kill is now 32nd in the league. This team's given up too many scoring opportunities since the Olympic break, and you can even throw goaltending in there. That's taken a little bit of a step backwards as well. Those things all turn into more goals against than the Kraken want every game, which I would say is 4 or more. If they can keep it to 3 or more, they're having success, and they were doing a lot of that leading up to that Olympic break.
Right. Well, you mentioned goaltending. I mean, just bouncing all year back between DeCord, Grubauer, DeCord, and we saw Kakko get the start against the Flames. I mean, what does the future of that position you think look like for this team?
Yeah, it's interesting having 5 players on the roster tonight that all have G's next to their name as goaltenders. Looks a little odd to me. 3 of them obviously out, 2 injured, 1 for personal reasons. Listen, the offseason is going to be interesting for this position because we don't know what's going to happen with Grubauer. We don't know what's going to happen with Joey DeCord. But this is a chance for both Nikkei Koko and Victor Osman to potentially show this coaching staff what they can do. Koko had the start the other night. He'll get it here again tonight, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Osman get at least one of these 2 remaining games so he can do the same thing.
Yeah, well, if you got a phone call from Todd Leiweke, who said, Al, I'm sorry to bother you, but I'd like to meet, have a cup of coffee, and get your thoughts on what this franchise needs to get back to a postseason run. He mentioned the audit. Obviously, we know Ron is stepping aside. Jason's coming back, but if Todd sat you down and asked for your opinion, what would be a couple of 2-3 things that you would tell him that you would love to see this team do over the offseason into next year?
Well, in broad strokes, I would certainly talk about this team needing more punch on their offense. That's been an issue for the past few seasons, actually. They've brought Bobby McMahon in. I think trying to keep him, trying to sign him should absolutely be a priority. He's part of solving that problem. But it's also developing the young players. It's also you've got some UFAs that are coming up in the summertime, potentially making some trades for more offensive push coming into next season. That's going to be a big one for me. I think on the back end, this Lane Lambert defensive structure, as long as you've got 20 players that have all bought in, and I think this team has bought into this structure this year, and they can execute it. That's the key there. Execute it 82 times a season. This team puts themselves in a position to win every night, but they've got to be able to put the puck in at the other net. They've got to be able to have goaltending. So I'm not worried about the defensive side of the game. Whatever players are on this team, they have to buy into it. You can't bring a player in that's a top scorer that's not going to buy into it. But if they buy into it and you get top scoring out of them, that's a big part of the shift this team needs to make.
No doubt. You know what? That's the stuff that Todd needs to hear. I'm going to make sure he's got your phone number, pal. I'm going to get you guys together. Hey, listen, enjoy it, man. 1 more at CP8 tonight and then 2 more on the road. Go get them, and we'll talk over the offseason, pal.
Sounds good. Thanks, Op.
You bet. Al Kinski, Kraken Kings, 1 final match, 1 final game at home for the 2025-26 season. And the boys are on the road in Vegas and Colorado to wrap it up. We'll see you tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Enjoy the game. Bye.